Chapter 943. After a long time, Dao Manshan returned to the 7th floor with a heavy heart. He had already sensed that Ning Fan had passed through the 8th trial. This meant that the 4th barbarian god had already completed the task of inheriting the inheritance. He must have passed away. The 4th barbarian? She was a god of berserkers who cared about the berserkers. Her death made Dao Manshan feel somewhat sentimental. However, when Dao Manshan returned to the 7th level, he saw a scene that made him not know whether to laugh or cry. The image of the mountains and seas painted by Shizi did not disperse. At this moment, her clothes were neat and tidy. She was teaching Ning Fan the transformation of the reverse relic. What was going on? You have already cultivated the inverse relic. The strength of the relic depends on the amount of charming aura it contains. When cultivating the inverse relic, there are a few points that you need to pay attention to. First, second, third. With the inverse relic, the more cauldrons you have, the greater the benefits. You don't have to pluck those cauldrons, you just need. Shi Zihua was like a teacher. She continuously taught Ning Fan the method to cultivate the inverse relic. Occasionally, she would even demonstrate. Ning Fan was like a student, quietly listening to Shi Zihua's explanation. Occasionally, he would raise 1 or 2 questions regarding the cultivation of bewitching techniques. The two of them had a serious look on their faces as if nothing romantic had happened between the two of them, but did nothing really happen? The meticulous Dao Manshan naturally noticed that there were some bruises on Shi Zihua's fair neck. It seemed that the 4th and 10th generations had done something. However, if they had done that, the mountain and sea shadow of the 4th generation would have disappeared without a doubt. Why didn't it disappear? He couldn't figure it out. Forget it, no matter what, it was a good thing that the 4th generation did not disperse. As for the specifics, there was no need to delve into it. Dao Manshan did not disturb them. Instead, he stood at the side, waiting for Shi Zihua to impart her cultivation experience to Ning Fan. A few hours later, Shi Zihua finally finished teaching Ning Fan. After listening to Shi Zihua's guidance, Ning Fan's understanding of the art of enchantment had improved significantly. With Shi Zihua's help, Ning Fan was lucky enough to cultivate the inverse relic. It was really a good item that had great uses. Unfortunately, he did not have a human cauldron with him at the moment. Thus, he could not test the various wonders of the inverse relic. As for its specific abilities, there was no need to go into details at this moment. You'll know soon enough. Many thanks to Senior for imparting the Tao to me. Ning Fan cupped his fists at Shi Zihua to express his gratitude. His eyes were filled with a hint of complicated emotions. After the erotic experience of rolling on the grass, she felt a little awkward calling him Senior. You don't have to thank me. Previously, I had the intention to kill you and gave you the Ni relic as compensation. From now on, we don't owe each other anything. Would they really not owe each other anything? Shi Zihua also had mixed feelings. Even though she was just the shadow of a mountain and sea and her true body was already dead, she could not pretend that the things that happened between her and Ning Fan had never happened. She had cultivated the bewitching art all her life, but this was the first time she was so intimate with a man. Shi Zihua's face turned red as she recalled the scene of them rolling on the grass. Initially, he was prepared to die, which was why he dared to do those things. Who would have thought that the shadow of mountain and sea was still alive? Now that he had to face Ning Fan again, he felt somewhat embarrassed. I don't want you. I don't want you. I don't want you. Suddenly, Shi Zihua recalled Ning Fan's resolute refusal. She felt a little annoyed and glared at Ning Fan in annoyance. She was actually despised, in Dao Manshan's eyes, however, it was regarded as the flirting between a couple. As expected, something happened between the 10th and 4th generations. Dao Manshan chuckled. His chuckle made Shi Zihua's expression turn serious. She was so angry that she forgot that she had left the 1st generation alone for a few hours. How rude of me! Shi Zihua restrained her expression and said to Dao Manshan, the 10th generation's 8th trial has been successfully passed. I'll take my leave first. Ning Fan had already passed the 8th trial. What was the point of her staying here? After bidding farewell to Dao Manshan, Shi Zihua did not look at Ning Fan again. Her figure flashed and disappeared. She only left behind a voice transmission that resounded in Ning Fan's mind. Humph. We won't meet again. There was still a lot of resentment in her voice. We won't meet again, huh? Ning Fan looked at the place where Shi Zihua disappeared and shook his head helplessly. I have a feeling that we will meet again. If I have the chance to leave the 4 heavens and 9 worlds in the future and head to the 3 great true worlds, I will most likely pay a visit to the barbarian race. There should be a day where we can meet again, hee. The 4th generation has always been a qualified barbarian god. She holds a high position like an emperor and never shows her emotions. She may look weak on the outside, but she is strong on the inside. I didn't expect that you could actually make her show such a girlish side. I'm really curious about what happened between you and the 4th generation. Dao Man Shan shook his head with a smile. Then he took out a dark red scroll and handed it to Ning Fan. This is... Ning Fan said with a hint of surprise. This is the method to use the seed. It is also the method to control the power of slaughter and punishment. Keep it first and look at it in the future. You have already passed the 8th trial and are about to leave this place. I have something to tell you. Senior, feel free to speak your mind. Ning Fan noticed that Dao Man Shan's expression was very serious. Presumably, what he was going to say was very important. Thus, he listened attentively. You have the power of the divine race, demon race, and devil race. These 3 races belong to the defying earth world. However, you also have the power of the Jieling clan. The Jieling clan belongs to the mortal world. The cultivation method you cultivate is very special. It can actually allow the 4 different bloodlines to coexist harmoniously. This is the first time I've heard of such a cultivation method. Compared to those cultivators who fuse their bloodlines with the help of the ancient return fruit, it is much stronger. Ning Fan initially thought that Dao Man Shan was probably going to tell him to protect the barbarian race. He did not expect that he was talking about his bloodline. Your cultivation method is extraordinary. I believe that you will truly fuse these 4 bloodlines one day. However, when that time comes, the 4 bloodlines will definitely need to have a master and a subordinate bloodline. I have a suggestion that I hope you will listen to. When you fuse your bloodlines, you must not use the Jieling clan as the main bloodline. The power of the Jieling clan is very strong, but it has a huge drawback. If you can make the divine race, demon race, and devil race suppress the Jieling clan, you will not have to worry about anything for the rest of your life. If you can't do this, you will never be able to escape from the hands of the Tribulation Lord. Once you enter the true world, you will be faced with a great disaster. Remember this. Remember this. Dao Man Shan gave Ning Fan a deep look. Then, he gradually faded and disappeared along with the entire ancient barbarian tomb. His cultivation base was far beyond ancient chaos. Even if he called the Tribulation Lord's name directly, it would not be a problem. Until he completely disappeared, Dao Man Shan did not make any request to Ning Fan to revitalize the barbarian race. From Dao Man Shan's point of view, there were some words that did not need to be said. If Ning Fan had the heart, he would naturally revitalize the barbarian race. If he did not have the heart, he could not force it either. Dao Man Shan's last words echoed in Ning Fan's ears for a long time, causing his expression to become unprecedentedly solemn. Can't I use the Jieling clan as the main bloodline to fuse with my bloodline? Even after his consciousness returned to his main body in the outside world, Ning Fan still remained silent. He slowly walked out of the lake and went to the shore. The power of the undying devil blood in the lake had already been depleted during the past year. Therefore, the lake water had become clear again. Oh my! Amazing! Brat, you actually passed the 8th trial. Amazing! Truly amazing! The garrulous voice of the eyeball awakened Ning Fan from his thoughts. How is it? Isn't the 4th barbarian god beautiful? Isn't it a feast for your eyes? It wasn't a loss to pass the 8th trial, right? I didn't lie to you, did I? What a pity. You can only enjoy it. The 4th barbarian god has never been intimate with any man. Don't even think about kissing her. Young man, be more open-minded. Those noble women aren't people that lowly commoners like me can covet. The strange eyeball comforted him as if he was a kindred spirit. Ning Fan did not know what to say. Should he tell the strange eyeball that he did not only kiss Shizihua but also Shizihua was the one who threw herself at him? Oh right, brat, was the strange phenomenon of the barbarian god fighting against the heavens related to you? The strange eyeball suddenly thought of something important and asked. Yes. After thinking for a while, Ning Fan felt that there was no need to hide this matter from the strange eyeball. Thus, he answered honestly. Why you actually became the 10th barbarian god of the ancient barbarian world. Really? Even though the strange eyeball had already expected it, he was still overjoyed when his guess was confirmed. If Ning Fan really becomes the 10th barbarian god, his chances of killing Inemo would undoubtedly increase by a lot. This was because as long as Ning Fan becomes the barbarian god, he would possess the power of slaughter and punishment. The only problem was that Inemo had too many punishment mountains. There were a total of 3 of them. As Inemo's right eye, the strange eyeball knew that Inemo had already cultivated the 3rd punishment mountain during these years. In terms of the power of punishment, as long as the legendary barbarian god in the history of the barbarian race could surpass him, brat, how many punishment mountains do you have now? 1 or 2? The strange eyeball thought to himself. In the history of the barbarian race, most of the barbarian gods only had 1 punishment mountain. In the past, only Shizihua and Inemo had 2 punishment mountains. The second generation had 2.5 punishment mountains. Of course, the current Inemo had 3 punishment mountains. The possibility of Ning Fan surpassing Inemo was not high. It would be difficult for him to have 3 punishment mountains. The lowest he had was 1. It was also possible for him to have 2 punishment mountains, but the possibility was not high. It would be great if this brat could have 2 punishment mountains. In that case, his chances of killing Inemo could increase to at least 60%, 36. Ning Fan thought for a while and answered the strange eyeball truthfully. He could faintly feel that the strange eyeball's question was related to killing Inemo. Thus, he naturally would not hide anything. What did you say? I don't think I heard it clearly. Say it again. Is it 3 or 6? The strange eyeball's face was filled with astonishment. Just now, he actually heard Ning Fan say 36. I'm hallucinating. I must be hallucinating. 36. Ning Fan answered again. This time, he directly summoned the 36 punishment mountains and released all of their punishment power. Suddenly, 36 gigantic golden mountains appeared in the sky. The formless punishment power spread across the entire space of the Copper Pagoda in just a moment. Miao Yen was not a barbarian. He could not feel the punishment power that originated from his bloodline. However, the strange eyeball was different. The true identity of the strange eyeball was the right eye of old ancestor Inemo. Due to some reasons, it was separated from Inemo's body. Inemo was a genuine barbarian cultivator. The strange eyeball could also be considered as a barbarian cultivator. As long as one was a barbarian cultivator, they would be able to feel the terrifying aura power of the 36 punishment mountains. Even though the strange eyeball had the cultivation base of a 7 tribulation immortal emperor, it still felt tiny in front of the 36 mountains. Ning Fan, who was standing in front of it, gave it a feeling that it was impossible to defeat him. It was as if he could kill it on the spot with just a thought. Facing Ning Fan, the strange eyeball began to tremble. It trembled so much that it could no longer maintain its flying posture and fell to the ground. 36 mountains. What a terrifying punishment power. I can't resist it and I can't defeat it. With this young man's cultivation base that is comparable to an immortal venerable, he can control the 36 mountains and kill the immortal emperors of the barbarian race who are below the 8 tribulation realm with just a thought. If his cultivation base is a little stronger, he can even kill a 9 tribulation barbarian emperor or a quasi-saint realm expert with just a thought. 90%. No, it's 95%. With the help of the 36 mountains, even if I don't plot against Inemo, I still have 95% chance of killing him if I fight him head-on. As for the remaining 5%, it depends on whether Inemo can be ruthless enough to do such a thing. However, even if the worst-case scenario happens, Inemo's strength will certainly be greatly reduced. Therefore, I still have a high chance of killing him. Great. This is really great. The strange eyeball that was lying on the ground did not feel humiliated at all. Instead, it was overjoyed. How could it not be happy when it had a 95% chance of killing Nemo? Joining hands with Ning Fan was really the best thing it had done in its life. Brat, you're amazing. I didn't expect that even the strange eyeball couldn't resist the power of my punishment. Ning Fan was also rather shocked. In the past, Ning Fan could not see through the strange eyeball's background. Now that he had become the 10th barbarian god of the barbarian race, he could easily see through the power of the strange eyeball. It belonged to the barbaric flash category. Naturally, it would be affected by the power of the Xing Mountains. Even though Ning Fan had suppressed Shizihua before, he was just a shadow of a mountain and a sea after all. He was not a living person. It was normal for him to be unable to withstand the power of his punishment. However, the strange eyeball was different. It was a living 7 tribulation barbarian emperor. Even so, it could not withstand the power of his punishment. The power of the 36 mountains was really not to be underestimated. As long as the 36 mountains existed, Ning Fan would have a huge advantage against barbarian cultivators. Of course, the 36 mountains also had more benefits. Ning Fan took out the scroll given to him by the barbarian mountain and scanned it with his spirit sense. Then he kept it temporarily without looking at it in detail. Even though he had passed the 8th trial, he still had to pass the 9th trial. He must not let his guard down. Ning Fan opened his mouth and swallowed. The 36 mountains turned into 36 rays of golden light and went back into his body. The earth-shattering power of the punishment then dispersed. The strange eyeball flew up from the ground again. It could not hide its excitement and began to talk non-stop to Ning Fan. What it said was all nonsense. For example, "Brat, you're really amazing. You actually became the 10th barbarian god." Then, here comes the question. Can you lend me your 36 mountains to play with? Can I still borrow the mountains? Ning Fan was speechless. Putting aside the fact that he could not lend the mountains, even if he could, he would not lend them to the strange eyeball. Ning Fan was too lazy to care about the strange eyeball. He sat cross-legged on the shore of the lake and circulated his tribulation blood to devour the 5 drops of ancestral realm barbarian blood in his body. There should still be some time before the arrival of the 9th trial. Strangely enough, all the barbarian blood in Ning Fan's body had been devoured by the tribulation blood. Even without any barbarian blood left, he could still become a barbarian god. Can I still become a barbarian god without barbarian blood? Ning Fan looked inside his body. He could vaguely feel that there was some kind of power between the tribulation blood and the barbarian blood. In the past, he could not feel the similarities between the two. However, after becoming a barbarian god, his senses towards the barbarian blood had become unprecedentedly sharp. Is this the reason why I can become a barbarian god? Time passed by slowly. A few hours later, the 5 drops of ancestral blood were all devoured by the tribulation blood. Ning Fan could feel that his tribulation blood cultivation base was only a few steps away from breaking through to the 3rd star true blood realm. If he passes the 9th trial, he would be able to break through to this realm. Rumble. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Rumble, rumble. Red clouds appeared above the lake. The 9th trial had arrived. Ning Fan did not think about whether he should go through the 9th trial or not. He slowly stood up from the ground and stared at the tribulation clouds with an expressionless face. He did not deliberately release his punishment aura force. However, the tribulation clouds still trembled when Ning Fan looked at them, as if they were afraid of him. Ning Fan had a feeling that the current him possessed the punishment aura force of the 36 mountains. Going through the 9th trial was as easy as flipping his palm. After all, there had never been a barbarian god who went through the 9th trial like Ning Fan. When the other barbarian gods went through the 9th trial, they had yet to become barbarian gods. Even if they had become barbarian gods, they would only have 1 or 2 Xing mountains. They would not be able to form such a deterrent force against the tribulation clouds. Ning Fan would be the first person to go through the 9th trial in the history of the ancient barbarian world. Ha! Stinking brat, we meet again. This time you must die." A ferocious laughter suddenly resounded from the tribulation clouds. At the next moment, the scenery around Ning Fan changed drastically. He knew that someone had displayed a divine ability that could change the heavens and earth. That ferocious laughter sounded very familiar. If he was not mistaken, that person should be the seventh barbarian god, Tagu. During the seventh trial, Ning Fan slashed Tagu's sword and seized the power of Tagu's shaman flow technique. However, he did not expect that Tagu would actually return when he was going through the ninth trial, preparing to take revenge on Ning Fan. Ning Fan only felt his vision turning black. Very soon, he appeared in a world where mountains and seas were inverted. Tagu was floating in the sky not far away from Ning Fan. There were two other figures beside him. "Tagu, is he the cultivator who destroyed your annihilation rune? He's very weak. His cultivation base hasn't even reached the immortal venerable realm. With your strength, it shouldn't be difficult for you to kill him if your annihilation technique isn't restrained. He's a lucky junior who actually managed to survive from your hands." One of the two old men who was tall and skinny said disdainfully, "My technique won't be restrained by him. I just need a single thought to kill him." The other short old man said with certainty, "I'll have to trouble the two of you to help me kill this brat." Tagu cupped his fists at the two old men with an extremely respectful expression. When he looked at Ning Fan, he was half gritting his teeth and half feeling pleased. "Don't worry. You can't kill him, but it's as easy as flipping our palms for the two of us. Even though you and I aren't cultivators of the same generation, we are as close as brothers. Since this brat humiliated you, we naturally won't just stand by and watch." The tall and skinny old man said angrily, "I heard that this brat is the Tai Tsong tribulation spirit. We were the servants of a tribulation spirit when we were alive. Now that we can kill a tribulation spirit after we die, it's really satisfying." The short old man smiled maliciously and licked his lips. Ning Fan expressionlessly looked at the three shadows of mountains and seas in front of him. Now that he had become the 10th barbarian god and the number of Xing mountains he had was far greater than ordinary barbarian gods, he could clearly feel that the three people in front of him also had a trace of punishment power in their bodies. Tagu was a barbarian god. Naturally, there would be a trace of punishment power in his body. Since the other two also had it, they must be barbarian gods as well. "Do you want to kill me?" Ning Fan suddenly asked. "If I don't kill you, I won't be able to get rid of the hatred in my heart. Of course, I must kill you. The ninth trial will certainly be the place where you die." Tagu gnashed his teeth and said, "Before you kill me, can you tell me your names? I want to know which generation of barbarian gods you are." Ning Fan's eyes shifted to the two old men beside Tagu. "Brat, your eyesight isn't bad. You can actually see that the two of us are barbarian gods when we were alive. Fine. I'll let you die knowing the truth." But just as the tall and skinny old man was about to answer, the short old man stopped him. "Fifth generation, don't waste your breath on this brat. He's probably trying to stall for time and prepare some kind of trump card to escape. Let's just kill him directly to avoid any trouble." The short old man said in a serious tone. No matter what, Ning Fan had tricked Tagu before. They had to be careful. Of course, I can see that he wants to stall for time. However, the three of us barbarian gods have joined forces and planted a restrictive formation here. With his cultivation base, it's impossible for him to escape. Stalling for time is useless. Killing him will be like slaughtering a dog. The tall and skinny old man said proudly. It turned out that the tall and skinny old man was the 5th generation barbarian god. As for the short old man, he was quite respectful towards the expert old man. He should be a barbarian god after the 5th generation. It's fine as long as he's not the 2nd or 3rd generation. In the history of the barbarian race, only the 1st to the 4th generation could be considered as the legitimate barbarian gods. The rest of the barbarian gods were the slaves of the Tai Tsong Jeling. They were the shame of the barbarian race. There's no harm in killing them. The reason why Ning Fan asked the question was because he was afraid that he might kill the wrong barbarian god. That was all. However, The other party misunderstood him as trying to stall for time. Stall for time? Is it necessary? Even Shi Zihua, who possessed 2 Xing mountains, would find it hard to fight against Ning Fan with just the mountain and sea shadow. In fact, he was almost forced to death by Ning Fan. The 3 barbarian gods in front of him seemed to only have 1 Xing mountain each. They were even weaker than Shi Zihua. It was still uncertain who would be the one to kill who, like slaughtering a dog. Attack! Barbarian Song's mountain and sea fall. The short old man waved his hand and a golden talisman brush appeared in his hand. Then he drew at the sky. All of a sudden, more inverted mountains and seas appeared in the sky. They turned into a giant hand that was burning with flames and pressed down on Ning Fan. The invisible force was enough to easily kill any immortal king. Even an immortal emperor would find it hard to resist it. Evil barbarian ghost control technique. The tall and skinny old man waved his sleeve. Immediately, countless eerie ghosts flew out from his sleeve and turned into an evil killing formation diagram that shrouded every direction. Before his divine ability was displayed, there was already a terrifying baleful chi rushing towards him. Even an ordinary immortal emperor would be terrified by this killing chi. Ta Gu was the only one who did not make a move. His mountain and sea shadow could only use one type of divine ability, the Oblivion Flow technique. Ning Fan had already destroyed its runes. Thus, he could no longer use his divine ability on Ning Fan. All he could do was watch from the side. Even though he could not attack Ning Fan, he was convinced that Ning Fan would die for sure. In the face of absolute power, any tricks would be useless. Ning Fan might be lucky enough to trick him once, but could he trick the other 2 barbarian gods at the same time? He's going to die. He's going to die. How dare you slash me with your sword and destroy my divine ability? This is your ending. Bang. The divine abilities of the 2 barbarian gods hit Ning Fan without any deviation. All of a sudden, the entire heaven and earth was filled with destructive waves. Everywhere was filled with explosive flashes of light. It was impossible to tell whether Ning Fan was dead or alive. However, thinking about it, Ning Fan was definitely going to die. Ta Gu was not the only one who thought so. The other 2 barbarian gods also had the same thought. However, as the barbarian light that filled the sky faded away, Ta Gu and the other 2 barbarian gods held their breaths. Each of them looked at Ning Fan, who was at the center of the attacks, as if they had seen a ghost. He didn't die. Ning Fan actually didn't die. Not only did he not die, but there was not even a single wound on his body. Above Ning Fan, there were 36 golden mountains hanging high in the sky. The earth-shattering power of slaughter and punishment swept across the entire heaven and earth in just an instant. If the power of slaughter and punishment is strong to a certain extent, it could make the opponent's barbarian technique not dare to attack him. Ning Fan did not even use the God-exterminating shield to defend himself. Instead, he just activated the punishment might of the 10th barbarian god, and the other 2 barbarian gods' divine abilities dared not approach him. The difference in the power of punishment between them was just too huge. How could the might of 1 mountain be compared to the might of 36 mountains? Even if Ta Gu and the others were at their peak, they would also be suppressed by Ning Fan's punishment might, let alone 3 mountain and sea shadows. 36 mountains. Impossible. How is this possible? Ta Gu and the others fell into a state of shock. They did not expect Ning Fan to have Xing mountains, let alone a terrifying 36 mountains. They did not have time to think further. Almost at the same time, the 3 of them turned around and tried to flee. However, they could not escape. I, Ning Fan, give you 3 barbarian cultivators the slaughter and punishment calamity. From today onwards, the 3 of you will be removed from the barbarian god position. Incinerate! 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 Almost at the same time when Ning Fan gave the order, a golden flame directly burst out from the bodies of Ta Gu and the others. The flame could not be extinguished and it burned their bloodlines. The golden flame was the punishment that Ning Fan had given them. It was the punishment that the barbarian gods gave to the barbarian cultivators. If Ta Gu and the others were still alive, they might still be able to resist it. Now, however, they were powerless and could only die. In just an instant, the 3 barbarian gods who were arrogant just now were all burned into ashes by the punishment flame. At this moment, the mountain and sea shadows of the 3 of them completely disappeared from the world. The 9th suffering was also past. The surrounding scenery changed. Ning Fan returned to the outside world. All of this happened in less than 100 breaths' time. In just 100 breaths' time, he had passed the 9th suffering. How did this brat do it? The eyeball stared at Ning Fan in shock and was speechless. In the history of the barbarian race, the number of Shaoxi barbarian cultivators who could pass the 9th suffering calamity could be counted with one's fingers. However, there was no one like Ning Fan who passed the 9th suffering calamity in less than 100 breaths' time. Of course, if the eyeball knew that Ning Fan's method of passing the 9th suffering calamity was to brutally kill 3 barbarian gods in a row, it would probably be even more shocked. I can kill Ta Gu and the others. Of course, I can also kill old ancestor Inemo. Ning Fan's confidence in killing Inemo was greatly boosted. After going through the 9th suffering calamity, his strength was definitely not the same as before. The eyeball monster recovered from the shock and began to chatter with Ning Fan. Most of the things it said were useless nonsense which was ignored by Ning Fan. He did not have the time to care about the eyeball. Instead, he focused on absorbing the new power of the ancestral blood in his body. After passing the 9th suffering calamity, Ning Fan's body had 6 more drops of ancestral-level barbarian blood. This time, it was definitely enough for the tribulation blood to break through to the 3rd star realm. As he continued to absorb the ancestral blood, the red light on Ning Fan's body became brighter and brighter. The aura force of his tribulation blood was actually comparable to that of a 0 tribulation eternal immortal venerable. That aura force continued to rise. As the ancestral blood was completely absorbed, Ning Fan's tribulation blood finally broke through to the 3rd star realm. At this moment, he could fight against the 1st tribulation eternal immortal venerable with just the power of his tribulation blood. A 3rd star tribulation blood could fight against a 1st tribulation eternal immortal venerable. If it's a 4 or 5 star tribulation blood, how strong would it be? Unfortunately, the 9th suffering calamity had passed. In the future, it would probably be extremely difficult for him to cultivate ancestral-level barbarian blood and provide it for the tribulation blood to cultivate. The 4th star realm was probably still far away. Just the power of the 3rd star tribulation blood was already so strong that Ning Fan found it hard to control it. He needed to stabilize his cultivation base immediately. I need to stabilize my tribulation blood's cultivation base immediately. After bidding farewell to the eyeball, Ning Fan turned into a ray of red light and disappeared in the space of the copper pagoda. He was looking for a place to go into seclusion. Next, I just need to help this young man fuse the 4 types of blood together. Then, the chance of killing Mo should increase to 99%. The eyeball's eyes were filled with hope. This time, it would definitely help the undying great emperor take revenge and kill the traitor Mo. If it still fails with Ning Fan's help, it should really find a piece of tofu and knock itself to death. Chapter 944. Within the space of the copper pagoda, Ning Fan found a place to enter seclusion to stabilize Jie Shui's cultivation base. This seclusion lasted for 9 years. During these 9 years, Miao Yan often came to Ning Fan's place for seclusion to ask about his recent situation. She was very concerned about him who suddenly went into seclusion. 9 years' time was enough for Miao Yan to figure out some things, namely that Ning Fan was not an expert who could go against saints as she had imagined him to be. When he met Miao Yan again, Ning Fan had already put on the ghost mask again. Even so, Miao Yan could still see some clues from their daily interactions. During the 9 years that he spent stabilizing his Jie Shui cultivation base, Ning Fan's qi fluctuated between high and low. When it was high, it was even comparable to the 1st tribulation immortal venerated. When it was low, it was just like a mid-true crossing realm junior. This was really strange. Miao Yan could not figure out Ning Fan's true cultivation base. However, she could tell that no matter how high Ning Fan's cultivation base was, it would not surpass the 1st eternal tribulation. At most, he would be a first tribulation immortal venerable. Could it be that fellow Taoist Zhao's true cultivation base is the same as mine? Both of us are only at the first immortal calamity. If that's the case, how did he kill thousands of immortal venerable corpses with a single sword strike? Did he use some kind of secret technique? In the cultivation world, is there such a secret technique that allows one to fight against 10,000? I can't figure it out, however. Miao Yan did not probe further. Everyone had their own secrets. Ning Fan had saved her several times and she would not purposely pry into his secrets. It had been 10 years since the two of them entered the copper pagoda with the eyeball monster. Coincidentally, the space of this copper pagoda could only last for 10 years. Not long after Ning Fan came out from his seclusion, the entire space of the copper pagoda showed signs of collapsing. Stinking brat, you've finally come out. Your aura seems to have improved a lot. Since that's the case, let's change to another copper pagoda. I'll help you complete the last step of bloodline fusion. With a flash of gray light, the strange eyeball appeared in front of Ning Fan. Its eyes scrutinized Ning Fan for a long time. In the end, it brought Ning Fan and Miao Yan away from the space of the copper tower and returned to the outside world. Not long after everyone exited the tower, a cracking sound could be heard. Countless cracks appeared on the copper pagoda as it had used up all of its power. The space within it was also completely destroyed, making it impossible to enter. Ning Fan thought to himself, if I use up all the time within the copper pagoda, it will be destroyed, huh? After destroying one pagoda, there were still 20 unsealed copper pagodas left. This time, the eyeball monster brought Ning Fan and Miao Yan to the front of a 10-floored copper pagoda. Ning Fan glanced at it and saw a row of divine seal characters carved on the door of the copper pagoda. Sealed within this pagoda for 100 years. The 9 levels of the pagoda were sealed for 10 years, and the 10 levels were sealed for 100 years. That handwriting still carried the domineering intent of looking down on the entire world. However, this time, Ning Fan had already become the barbarian god. When he looked at those words again, he was actually not afraid of the terrifying aura force contained within them at all. He was already the god of the barbarian tribe and possessed the might of the 36 punishment mountains. Now, he could easily suppress most of the second-step barbarian cultivators with the power of punishment. Even though the power of punishment could not harm any race other than those who were berserker cultivators, it had a strong resistance against the pressure from the outside world. Perhaps this line of words was really left behind by the great emperor of Morning Death who looked down upon the entire world. However, as long as this aura force was still limited to the second step, Ning Fan would not be intimidated at all. The eyeball monster brought the two of them into the bronze pagoda. Miao Yan's injuries had yet to fully recover after staying in the bronze pagoda for 10 years. Thus, she had to find a place to go into seclusion to recuperate. Ning Fan, on the other hand, was different. He was brought to a desolate desert within the space of the bronze pagoda by the eyeball monster. Above the desert, smoke rose up to the clouds. There were also scattered pyramids scattered on the desert. Outside those pyramids, there were many ancient statues with the bodies of sphinxes and human faces. Ning Fan felt that this scene was very familiar. It was as if he had seen it somewhere before. That's right. I've seen it before during the great calamity of Sinluo. It was the scenery of the Quicksand Star region. Ning Fan still remembered that he had comprehended a trace of the great Tao of time in the Quicksand Star region. It was the power to control time. He was still there, refining a fragment of the Yin fusion pearl. He remembered that it was the 10th Yin fusion pearl, the strongest among the 10 Yin fusion pearls. What was different from the Quicksand Star region was that the pyramids here were all empty. They did not exist in temples. The power of time in this place is very strong. This place wasn't originally a desert. It's the power of the Tao law of time that changed the landscape of this place. Ning Fan muttered to himself. He gently closed his eyes. He could feel the breathing of the Tao law between the mountains and seas. The Tao law could also breathe. Everything was alive. This was the world in the eyes of barbarians. When Ning Fan closed his eyes, he seemed to be able to see the changes in the landscape of this place. Once, there were mountains and seas in this place. There was once a powerful cultivator who had comprehended the Tao law of time in this place. When he had a slight comprehension, the vast ocean turned into mulberry fields. The land turned into quicksand at his fingertips with just a thought. Who was that powerful cultivator? He had no way of knowing. Perhaps he was the great Emperor Dao Wang that the eyeball monster mentioned. Alright. What's so interesting about a barren desert? Stop looking. Let's get down to business. Come out, small memorial archway. The eyeball monster shot out a ray of gray light. After the gray light faded, a 700 zhang tall stone archway appeared in the desert out of nowhere. It had 4 pillars and 3 doors. It had the texture of white jade in the mortal world. It was round and smooth, but it did not look like an ordinary stone. It gave off a strong immortal qi. In the cultivation world, memorial archways were very common. Some large sects loved to build such archways outside their mountain gates to suppress the spiritual qi of the sect. Even in the mortal world, such buildings could often be seen outside many tombs and temples. However, the archway in front of them did not look like the archways of ordinary sections. Faintly, it gave off a trace of innate qi. A mere stone archway was actually an innate magic treasure. This eyeball monster's wealth was indeed very rich. Sure enough, the small iron cage was not the only innate magic treasure. However, this name is really unpleasant to the ears. Small iron cage and small memorial archway. What kind of lousy names are these? Qian, Zhen, Ken, Zhen, Kuan, Sun, Li Dui. The eyeball monster chanted a divination incantation. Then, the stone archway lit up with rays of treasure light. The treasure light spread widely enough to envelop the entire space of the copper pagoda. As a result, all the spiritual qi in the space of the copper pagoda was forcibly gathered by the stone archway. Its effect was more domineering than any spirit-gathering formation. This treasure can absorb spiritual qi from all directions for my use. If you establish a sect and set up this treasure in your sect, the effect of your disciples' cultivation will definitely increase by more than 10 times. This magical treasure is not bad, isn't it? The eyeball monster proudly showed off. It's indeed not bad, but it's not very useful. Ning Fan thought to himself. In the cultivation world, there were not many people who were willing to absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to cultivate. It was fine for low-grade cultivators, but if those high-grade cultivators only went into seclusion, they might not be able to advance a small realm even after thousands of years. Only by relying on external resources could they quickly improve their cultivation base. Of course, this did not mean that meditation was not important. Naturally, there would be great risks if one wanted to compete for opportunities in the cultivation world. There were plenty of powerful cultivators who were willing to spend 1,000,000 years in seclusion. If he has this treasure, he would only need 100,000 years to achieve the same result. This item was not completely useless. Of course, if Ning Fan establishes a certain force, this item would be even more useful. It could strengthen all the disciples of his sect and speed up their cultivation. If this item is placed in the profound Yin world and given to the human cauldrons, it should be able to make their cultivation base skyrocket. If it was in the past, the improvement of the cultivation base of the human cauldrons would not bring much benefit to Ning Fan. But now, Ning Fan looked at the inverse relic in his dantian and his eyes flashed with an undetectable light. Perhaps this stone archway will also be of great use. Alright. I have already gathered the spiritual qi from all directions. It shouldn't be difficult for me to help you fuse the 4 types of bloodlines. The eyeball monster displayed its ability confidently. The entire desert was instantly shrouded by layers of gray light. No one could see what was happening inside. Time passed by slowly. 1 day passed. 2 days passed. In the blink of an eye, 1 month had passed. The gray light on the desert gradually dispersed. It had only been a month, but the eyeball monster seemed to have exhausted a lot of its energy. Its expression was no longer as confident as before. Instead, it was filled with dejection. I can't fuse them. I can't fuse them at all. It's actually so difficult. This won't do. Your Jie Shui is too domineering. Let me take a rest first. Then we will try again. The eyeball monster rested for a few days before it recovered to its peak state. Then, it displayed its ability again, causing the gray light to envelop the entire land. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. I failed again. I don't believe it. Let's try one more time. 6 months had passed. I still can't fuse them. Let's try again. 3 years had passed. Damn it. Ancient Chaos is a liar. Didn't he say that fusing the bloodlines is easy? Why is it so difficult? After failing countless times, the eyeball monster finally lost his temper and began to curse Ancient Chaos. The eyeball monster had seen Ancient Chaos before. He even heard about the past of Ancient Chaos who had fused the bloodlines of the Ancient God, Ancient Demon and Ancient Devil. The process of Ancient Chaos's bloodline fusion was not difficult. Thus, the eyeball monster mistakenly thought that it would not be too difficult for Ning Fan to fuse 4 types of bloodlines. Unfortunately, he had completely underestimated the difficulty of Ning Fan fusing 4 types of bloodlines. If Ning Fan only had these 3 bloodlines, it would not be difficult for him to fuse them. After all, the power of these 3 bloodlines came from the same source. All of them were the power of the defying Earth realm. However, Ning Fan had the power of the Tai Tsang Jie Ling in his body. It was a power that belonged to the mortal world which was incompatible with the power of the defying Earth realm. Damn it. Let's try again. The eyeball monster wanted to pull Ning Fan to fuse his bloodlines again. However, Ning Fan refused with a bitter smile. There's no need. I have already figured out the reason why I can't fuse my bloodlines. With the current condition of my bloodlines, I'm afraid the result will be the same even if I try 1,000 times or 10,000 times. I will still fail. Now is not the right time to fuse the 4 types of bloodlines. In the end, the eyeball monster left reluctantly. It went to find a place to rest in seclusion and replenish the primordial qi that it had consumed in the past few years. As for Ning Fan, he sat cross-legged on the desert. He looked at the 4 types of bloodlines in his body with a solemn expression. To the inheritor of Ancient Chaos, fusing bloodlines was extremely important. Different bloodlines would more or less repel and restrain each other. The 4 types of bloodlines were like 4 countries that had joined forces. They were united in name, but they were not united after all. Only when they were truly united could they unleash their greatest power. If Ning Fan could fuse the 4 types of bloodlines, he would no longer be a divine cultivator, a devil cultivator, a demon cultivator, or a tribulation cultivator. There would only be one type of cultivation base in his body which included the bloodlines of the 4 races. His strength would be greatly improved. Unfortunately, even with the help of the eyeball monster, the fusion of the bloodlines still failed. There are 3 reasons why I can't fuse the 4 types of bloodlines. Firstly, there is a huge barrier between the power of the mortal world and the defying Earth realm which makes it difficult for them to coexist. In order to break this barrier, I need some external forces. The ancient returning fruit suddenly appeared in Ning Fan's mind. It was not the first time he heard that this fruit had the miraculous effect of fusing bloodlines. Even a cultivator who had never cultivated the yin-yang transformation could fuse many types of bloodlines with this fruit. If he could find some ancient returning fruits, he might be able to break the barrier between the bloodlines of the divine, demon and devil race and the tribulation bloodline. Secondly, the divine, demon and devil bloodlines are too weak while the tribulation bloodline is too strong. I'm afraid that only when the 4 types of bloodlines achieve a balance in power can the fusion be completed. The tribulation bloodline was already very strong. Next, he needed to focus on cultivating the bloodlines of the divine, demon and devil races. Thirdly, I have yet to see the essence of the 4 races' bloodlines clearly. The difference between the bloodlines of the 4 races is ultimately due to the difference in the Tao. The divine cultivates their heart, the demon cultivates their spirit and the devil cultivates their blood. The heart, spirit and blood are just the surface. The real difference is the difference in their views towards the Tao. Moreover, the understanding of the Tao of the tribulation spirit is completely different from the 3 races. From different perspectives, one would see the world differently. This was something Ning Fan understood after learning the mountain and sea incantation. There was still a long way to go before he could fuse the bloodlines of the four races. There was no need for him to be anxious. With Ning Fan's current abilities, he was quite confident in killing Inemo. Of course, it would be best if he could improve his cultivation base to the next level. Ning Fan had a large number of heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures that could improve his cultivation base. However, he needed a lot of time to devour and refine them. He had cultivated the Yin-Yang Rain and the Yin-Yang Battle, but he had yet to complete the last step of the Chaotic Loop art, completely devouring and absorbing the power of the two great Yin and Yang to improve his cultivation base. Now that he had the sealed time tower, he had sufficient time to complete the cultivation that he could not complete in the past. Unfortunately, before Ning Fan could start his cultivation, Candle Bao's incessant chatter resounded in his mind. "Master, let me out. I can't take it anymore. I want to take revenge on that eyeball monster." "Master, my wise master. Your little Bao is being bullied. How can you remain indifferent? That eyeball monster is not bullying me. It is slapping your face. Slapping master's face is the same as slapping little Bao's face. I can't take it anymore. I really can't. Little Bao is bold enough to challenge master to battle. I must teach that damn eyeball monster a lesson and help master vent his anger." "You just want to vent your anger for yourself, don't you?" Ning Fan shook his head. At first, he wanted to punish Candle Bao properly and make it shut up. However, after thinking for a while, it did not seem like a bad idea to let Candle Bao suffer some losses in front of the eyeball monster. This Candle Bao indeed needed some fixing. "Are you sure you want to fight that eyeball monster?" Ning Fan bent his palm and took out Candle Bao. He asked with a profound tone. "I'm very sure. It's just a broken eyeball. How dare it lock me in the smelting furnace and almost melt me? Pumph! That damn eyeball. Wise and great master, please give little Bao a chance to take revenge." Candle Bao said angrily. "Fine. If you want to go, then go. I won't stop you." Ning Fan loosened his grip. "Thank you for your kindness, master. Master, you are really good to me. You are even willing to agree to such an unreasonable request." Little Bao's heart was really clouded by lard and my eyes were blind to betray you in the past. Little Bao will go and find that eyeball monster to deal with. Master, please wait for my good news." Candle Bao was overjoyed. As Ning Fan loosened his grip, it directly turned into a ray of light and flew away ferociously. It was going to find trouble with the eyeball monster. This Candle Bao is really stupid. It doesn't know that the eyeball monster has a 7 tribulation immortal emperor realm cultivation base. With its strength, provoking it at its doorstep is simply courting death. It will probably be taught a terrible lesson. Maybe it will be more obedient after that. As Candle Bao left, the place returned to its usual tranquility. Ning Fan closed his eyes. His body was gradually covered with a layer of wet rain qi. Gradually, the entire desert was filled with dark clouds. Not long after that, a drizzle fell from the sky. The rain star on Ning Fan's glabella shone with a strange light. At this moment, it was unsealed on its own. Ever since Ning Fan cultivated the Yin-Yang Rain, his cultivation base would skyrocket once the seal was unsealed. Ancient Chaos had once said that if he had the strength of a late True Crossing Realm expert, he could completely absorb and refine the power of the Yin-Yang Rain, allowing his cultivation base to skyrocket to the peak of the True Crossing Realm. At that time, the Yin-Yang Rain would not need to be unsealed again and again. Instead, it would directly turn into Ning Fan's cultivation base. Even though the current Ning Fan was not a late True Crossing Realm cultivator, he was a Tribulation Spirit with 3 stars true blood. In terms of Tribulation Spirit's cultivation base alone, he was completely comparable to an immortal venerable who had experienced the first tribulation since the ancient times. It was not difficult for him to absorb the power of the Yin-Yang Rain. This 100-year-old copper tower can still stay for another 96 years. I wonder if it is enough for me to absorb all the power of the Yin-Yang Rain. Ning Fan's entire body became more and more blurry, as if he had merged with the curtain of rain. In the blink of an eye, 96 years had passed. When the 100-year-old copper tower was on the verge of collapse, Ning Fan walked out from the curtain of rain. His aura had obviously changed. He was clearly standing there. However, those whose cultivation base was lower than his could only sense a misty drizzle when they scanned this place with their spirit sense. They could not detect his presence at all. After 96 years of bitter cultivation, Ning Fan had only absorbed 1/3 of the power of the yin-yang rain. Even so, with just 1/3 of the power of the yin-yang rain, Ning Fan's ancient god realm rose from the mid-true crossing realm to the late true crossing realm. If he absorbs all the power of the yin-yang rain, it should not be difficult for him to break through to the peak true crossing realm. 96 years is not enough. I need at least another 200 years to finish devouring the yin-yang rain. It should be enough to enter 2 more 100-year-old towers. Master, save me. Master, my good master? You actually let your dog bite me. You despicable eyeball. Suddenly, Candle Bao's miserable cry for help was heard from afar. Ning Fan looked towards the direction of the voice and saw the scene of Candle Bao in his human form being chased by a group of giant silver wolves. If one takes a closer look, they would realize that those giant wolves were all puppet beasts. They were not living beings. When they were chasing after Candle Bao, they did not have much killing intent. Instead, they seemed to be toying with him. Go ahead and scream. Even if you scream until your throat breaks, no one will come to save you. The eyeball followed behind the group of wolves with a wretched smile. Speaking of which, when Candle Bao first came to pick a fight with Ning Fan, he was easily subdued by the eyeball monster. Since then, he had been locked in the cave and was tortured by the eyeball monster. This trial lasted for 96 years. 96 years. It was not easy for him to escape from the cave of the eyeball monster, but he was chased by a group of wolves again. Candle Bao wanted to cry but had no tears. He really regretted finding trouble with the eyeball monster in the past. This eyeball monster was too powerful. He could not afford to provoke it at all. I've caught you. What a torturous little demon. Unfortunately, you are a little lacking in training. Let this old man teach you a lesson on behalf of your master. Don't worry. It won't hurt this time. Being surrounded by the wolves, the eyeball monster quickly grabbed Candle Bao. His laughter became even more wretched. Master, save me. His brain is not normal. Candle Bao desperately cried for help like a young girl who was being bullied. What have these two fellows been doing all these years? Ning Fan's forehead was full of black lines. I feel that Candle Bao has left a huge psychological shadow in my heart. Is it my illusion? Chapter 945. Little brat, your cultivation base has improved again? Late true crossing ancient god realm? Not bad, not bad. After getting the Candle Bao back, the monster was already in a good mood. Now that Ning Fan had walked out of the rain and his cultivation base had improved, it was naturally in a better mood. The higher Ning Fan's cultivation base was, the more confident he would be in killing Inemo. How could it not be happy? Master, save me. I will definitely listen to you in the future. Master, you don't know this, but there is something wrong with this eyeball monster's brain. My body and my heart have already... Woo. Candle Bao, who was in human form, was currently tied up by a golden rope. It was held in the mouth of a giant wolf puppet. As soon as it saw Ning Fan, it immediately started crying. What exactly happened between these two? Ning Fan's forehead was filled with more black lines. I don't want to ask. I don't want to ask at all. I feel that my view of life will be overturned if I ask. However, no matter what, this Candle Bao belonged to me. I can't let the monster bully it too much. Ning Fan frowned slightly. He would naturally protect his own belongings. Just as he was about to ask for the Candle Bao back, he heard the monster's words. Little brat, this innate Bao spirit of yours is not bad. How about lending it to me for a while? The monster smiled wretchedly. I have a way to make it advance into an innate Bao spirit. Master, don't agree to it. Ever. Wait. What did you say? You can help me advance into an innate Bao spirit. The Candle Bao instantly quieted down and stopped crying. You can help this Bao spirit advance into the innate Bao spirit? Ning Fan was also a little surprised. Innate treasure spirits were rare in the world. Does this monster really have a way to achieve this? Little brat, look at what this is. The monster smiled mysteriously and summoned a ray of gray light. After the gray light dispersed, a small green bottle appeared in front of it. The small bottle was extremely old and was covered in green copper. As it hovered in the air, it actually caused the sky to be filled with a strange phenomenon of green light. That small green bottle was vaguely an innate magic treasure. It had the power of an innate treasure. However, Ning Fan did not know its specific function. Speaking of which, this was already the third innate magic treasure. The monster's wealth is indeed rich. Ning Fan did not know about this small green bottle. Just as he was about to ask about the function of this treasure, the candle Bao on the other side lost its composure before he could open his mouth. Could it be? Candle Bao seemed to recognize this treasure. His breathing immediately became heavy and he was extremely excited. That's right, this is it. I bet you didn't expect that this old man would have such an item in his hands, the eyeball monster said proudly. I didn't expect this, I really didn't expect this. If I knew that Big Brother Eyeball had such a good item, I wouldn't have run away no matter what. It's still not too late to return to this old man's side, you little demon who says one thing but means another. The strange eyeball smiled wretchedly. Yes, little brother will definitely return to your side. Well, master, you don't have to save me, you go about your business. Big Brother Eyeball, shall we find a place to talk? Ning Fan. This candle Bao, it was asking me for help earlier. Now that there are benefits, it wants to chase me away? As expected, he needed to be taught a lesson. Forget it, since it's willing to stay by the eyeball monster's side, I'll let it be. It would not be a bad thing if he could successfully evolve into an innate level Bao spirit. Speaking of which, Ning Fan still had no idea what kind of magic treasure that small green bottle was. Eventually, the space of the 100-year-old bronze tower collapsed. Ning Fan followed the eyeball monster and entered another 100-year-old bronze tower. As soon as they entered the bronze tower, Candle Bao and the eyeball monster disappeared without a trace. No one knew what they went to do. Miao Yan's injuries had already healed. This time, she did not follow Ning Fan into the tower. Instead, she stayed outside the tower. To Ning Fan, obtaining 100 years of cultivation time was a great thing as it could allow his cultivation base to skyrocket. However, to Miao Yan, cultivating for 100 years was not very meaningful. Instead, it would cause the heavenly tribulations to descend 100 years earlier. It was really not worth it. That's right. Even if time stops in the time tower, the passage of time would still be recorded in the heavenly tribulations of the cultivators. Miao Yan was not ready for the heavenly tribulations yet. Naturally, she did not want to waste her time in the time tower to trigger the heavenly tribulations. Miao Yan floated in the air outside the tower forest, waiting for Ning Fan to return from his arduous cultivation. 100 years in the tower was just a moment outside the tower. 100 years passed in the blink of an eye. Ning Fan followed the eyeball monster and Candle Bao out of the copper tower and entered the next one. Very quickly, another 100 years passed. Ning Fan walked out of the cave again. His ancient God Realm cultivation base had completely broken through to the peak stage of the Crossing Truth Realm. The cultivation of the Yin-Yang rain could be considered to have been completed. It turned into a bright star on Ning Fan's glabella. Next, it was time to absorb Zhan Yin-Yang's power. There were still 12 unsealed 10-year time pagodas and 5 100-year time pagodas. In addition, there were 606 sealed pagodas in the forest of pagodas that could not be entered. If I absorb the power of Zhan Yin-Yang, I wonder if my ancient god cultivation will break through to the abandoning void realm in one go. After leaving the savage desolate ancient region, it was almost time for him to accompany Ouyang Nuan to the extreme Dan sacred region. If his cultivation exceeded the peak of the Crossing Truth Realm, it seemed that he wouldn't be able to enter the extreme Dan sacred region. But Jie Shui's cultivation seemed to have long surpassed the limits of the peak of the Duzhen realm, and was comparable to a first tribulation immortal venerable. How should I calculate that with his cultivation? It seemed like he had long been unable to enter the extreme Dan sacred region. Since things have come to this, I'll absorb Zhan Yin Yang's power first. By then, I'll probably have to make a clone whose cultivation base is lower than abandoning Void Realm to accompany Nuan Air. I have no other choice. Ning Fan made up his mind. He followed the eyeball monster and Candle Bao into the next copper tower. 100 years passed. Another 100 years passed. This time, Ning Fan spent 500 years to completely absorb Zhan Yin Yang's power. It actually took him 200 years more than Yu Yin Yang. During these 500 years, Ning Fan experienced his first minor heavenly tribulation since he started cultivating. The minor heavenly tribulation that was extremely terrifying to ordinary cultivators of the Duzhen realm was directly crushed by Ning Fan with just a raise of his hand. The more times one went through a heavenly tribulation, the more terrifying it would be. It was just a minor heavenly tribulation, and it was just his first heavenly tribulation. Naturally, it was not difficult for him to pass it. 500 years later, Ning Fan had used up all the 100-year bronze pagodas. There were only 12 10-year bronze pagodas left. After 500 years of arduous cultivation, Ning Fan had absorbed all the power of Zhan Yin Yang. The total amount of his magic power was almost comparable to a mid-abandoning Void Realm cultivator. However, he still could not easily enter the abandoning Void Realm. Abandoning Void Realm. The word abandonment was the key to the cultivation of this realm. In this realm, the cultivation of magic power was no doubt important, but what was more important was to get rid of the shackles in one's heart. In order to break through to the next realm, one must trigger the heart tribulation and pass it. Heart tribulation could only be encountered but not sought. One could only wait without knowing when it would come. Ning Fan still remembered the scene when Yao Qingyun triggered her heart tribulation in the past. Before Ning Fan appeared, Yao Qingyun was stuck at the bottleneck of the early abandoning Void Realm for 200,000 years. Later on, because of Ning Fan's appearance, Yao Qingyun triggered her heart tribulation. In the end, she broke through it and touched the bottleneck of the mid-abandoning Void Realm. After all these years, she should have already broken through to the mid-abandoning Void Realm. Recalling the past, Ning Fan could not help but smile. However, soon after, he felt a headache. Whether the heart tribulation of the sharing Void Realm could descend completely depended on luck. Could it be that he had to be like Yao Qingyun and be stuck at the bottleneck of the heart tribulation for 200,000 years before breaking through to the early abandoning Void Realm? He did not have that much time to waste. Speaking of which, the arrival of the heart tribulation was all about luck, and luck was usually related to luck. I wonder if increasing my luck can speed up the arrival of the heart tribulation. Ning Fan's face showed a thoughtful expression. The grade of his immortal luck was the 4th color. This grade was definitely not weak among the immortal venerables of the ancient times. However, compared to those immortal kings and immortal emperors, it was not considered outstanding. If there's a chance, it's time to increase my luck. In the next 120 years, Ning Fan used up the remaining 12 10-year-old sealed towers and only did 2 things. Firstly, he refined the fragments of old ancestor poisonous dragon's Dragon Ball. Secondly, he unsealed the 30 million traces of seals in the Origin Chi. The Origin Chi was a supreme treasure. If one refines and absorbs it, one's cultivation base could be greatly improved. However, even an ordinary immortal emperor would find it difficult to refine it. The current Ning Fan was even more incapable of doing so. To Ning Fan, the current use of the Origin Chi was only as a trump card. Once it explodes, even an immortal emperor would be severely injured. After unsealing the Origin Chi, Ning Fan could use it to attack his enemies without needing to ignite his blood. Without a doubt, his ability to protect himself would increase significantly. As for the act of refining the fragments of the Dragon Ball, Ning Fan's ancient demon cultivation base broke through continuously from the early mortal profound realm to the peak mortal profound realm. The Dragon Ball of the ancient immortal venerables was really a good item. It was comparable to a Dao fruit. The 620 years of bitter cultivation did not only change Ning Fan's cultivation base but also the strange relationship between the eyeball and Candle Bao, Big Brother Eyeball, after spending 620 years together, I finally know that you are a good person. In order to avenge my elder brother's humiliation, I actually endured humiliation until now and lived a lonely life. Big brother's righteousness is beyond my reach. Candlebow said to the eyeball with tears in his eyes as if he was deeply touched. Little brother Zhu, I have misunderstood you. At first, I thought that you weren't good enough. That's why I tortured you for fun. However, I didn't expect that you actually followed the ancestral dragon Zhu Li in the past and fought everywhere. You once fought to protect the Zido immortal domain and died with only the body of an artifact spirit left. You are simply the role model of the Zido immortal domain. I promise that from today onwards, I will never bully you again. If I break this oath, I will punish me by not being able to see a beauty for the rest of my life. Big brother, you and I are kindred spirits. Why don't we become brothers of the opposite sex? Alright. From today onwards, I will be your big brother eyeball. If you have any difficulties in the future, just tell me. Big brother. Second brother. Big brother. Second brother. What the hell is this? When he walked out of the copper tower again, Ning Fan was immediately shocked by the scene of the two fools burning yellow paper and becoming sworn brothers. He stared at the two clowns speechlessly. Weren't these two fools just a while ago? They kept calling me little demoness. How did they become sworn brothers again after 620 years? What exactly happened to these two fools during these 620 years? However, speaking of which, Candlebow's chi had become much stronger. Even though it had not truly broken through the boundary of an innate artifact spirit, it was probably not far from it. It seems like this Candlebow had obtained quite a lot of benefits from the eyeball. Ning Fan was too lazy to care about these two fools. His gaze shifted to the dense forest of towers in front of him. For the first time, he had the feeling of entering a treasure mountain and returning empty-handed. There were clearly many time towers in this place. However, because the seals had not been removed, he could not enter or use them. What a pity! He still had the dark time fruit that he had yet to refine. He would need a lot of time to complete this task. What kind of feeling is this? Ning Fan stared at the sealed towers and his eyes suddenly flashed with light. Brat, why are you looking at me like that? You still want to enter the time towers to cultivate? You've tasted the sweetness, haven't you? Unfortunately, the seals of the other time towers have yet to be broken. You can't enter them for the time being. The eyeball monster only noticed Ning Fan after it finished chatting with Candlebow. Do you know that the seals of the towers here were personally placed by Great Emperor Mournful Death? They are extremely powerful. Even with my eternal 7 tribulations cultivation base, I've spent tens of thousands of years just to break 21 of the seals. With your current cultivation base, I'm afraid you still won't be able to break any of the seals even if you have tens of thousands of years. Speaking of which, it will be the time when Een Mo's great tribulation of imperfection descends in 24 hours. It's the best time to kill him. We don't have much time left. If there's a chance in the future, I'll help you break a few more seals of the towers for your cultivation. As for now, let's talk business. The eyeball monster's words were directly ignored by Ning Fan. At this moment, Ning Fan's mind was completely focused on this forest of towers. He had a vague feeling. If he willed it, he could easily avoid all the seals of the towers in this place because he was the god of the barbarian race. I see. The seals of the towers here are all the restrictions of the barbarian race. That's why I have this strange feeling. Ning Fan walked towards one of the 10-years-old bronze towers and his eyes lit up with enlightenment. The person who placed the seals might be Mournful Death, but the restrictions used were the formations of the barbarian race. This was really a good coincidence. How could the formations of the barbarian race dare to stop the barbarian god? To Ning Fan, the seals here were useless. There was no need for him to break them. Brat, what are you trying to do? If the seal of this bronze tower is not broken, you won't be able to enter. The eyeball monster suddenly choked halfway through its words and could no longer speak. As soon as Ning Fan approached the 10-years-old bronze tower, the seals outside the tower began to creak. A few moments later, they parted on their own, forming a passage that allowed him to enter the tower. It was as if it was welcoming Ning Fan into the tower. After that, Ning Fan stepped into the 10-years-old bronze tower step by step without breaking the seal of the tower. Are you kidding me? He actually entered the bronze tower without breaking the seal. Could it be that the seal of this bronze tower had lost its effectiveness after so many years? The eyeball monster was shocked. It followed closely behind Ning Fan, wanting to enter the tower like Ning Fan. However, it was violently shaken by the power of the seal and was sent flying far away, cursing in pain. Damn it! The seal of the tower did not lose its effectiveness at all. How could this brat enter the tower? That's right. This brat is the barbarian god. He possesses the power of slaughter and punishment. No barbarian restriction under the heavens dares to stop him. To be able to make the formation give way on its own, this is the power of a god. Damn it, this power really makes this old man envious. Just as the eyeball monster cursed, Ning Fan walked out of the 10-years-old bronze tower and entered another bronze tower. Only a moment had passed in the outside world, but Ning Fan had already completed 10 years of bitter cultivation in the tower. There were 407 bronze towers left in this place. In the end, Ning Fan entered all of them and destroyed them. 407 bronze towers, 4,070 years of bitter cultivation. That day at the riverside of the True Illusion River, Ning Fan only used 10 days to refine 1/10 of the dark time fruit with the help of the river demon. This time, Ning Fan did not have anyone to help him. After spending 4,070 years, he only managed to refine one dark time fruit. While refining the dark time fruit, Ning Fan also took out a 9 stars dark element cultivation technique, dark light scripture from the profound Een world's hidden scripture to cultivate. Dark light scripture. Among the 10 great secret races, it was the highest cultivation technique of the Dark Clan. Only the elite cultivators of the clan were qualified to cultivate this technique. Such a precious cultivation technique was kept in the hidden scripture tower by ancient chaos and given to Ning Fan. Now was the time for him to cultivate it. With the help of the dark light scripture, Ning Fan slowly formed the third divine Yin-Yang star, the young dark star. The dark blood that was produced from his copulation with the little demoness was absorbed by the young star. Similarly, when he refined the dark time fruit, the speed of his cultivation also increased. Just a single dark time fruit had increased the speed of Ning Fan's cultivation by 30%. The medicinal power of the dark time fruit also increased Ning Fan's cultivation. A single dark time fruit could increase a cultivator's cultivation by 400,000 years. Ning Fan was a 3 orifices ancient god. Consuming the dark time fruit could offset 3,200,000 years of bitter cultivation. Since Ning Fan's ancient god realm cultivation base was obviously higher than that of the ancient demons and devils, the dark time fruit was the first to improve their cultivation bases. The ancient demons' cultivation soared from the peak of the human Xian realm to the late stage of the crossing truth realm. The ancient devil's cultivation also broke through to the third nirvana of the heavenly devil. There are 9 more dark time fruits. After the 10 years bronze pagodas were destroyed, Ning Fan began to enter the 100 years bronze pagodas for cultivation. There were a total of 13300 years bronze pagodas in this place. After another 13,300 years of arduous cultivation, Ning Fan had refined another 3 dark time fruits. His ancient demon cultivation base had reached the peak of the crossing truth realm, but he still could not attain the shedding void realm. Ancient devil's cultivation had risen to the 5th nirvana of the sky devil. The quintuple nirvana heavenly devil corresponded to the early stage of shedding void, but it was much stronger than ordinary early stage shedding void cultivators. Ning Fan did not expect that it would be so difficult to break through the bottleneck of the renouncing void realm for both divine and demon cultivation bases. On the contrary, the ancient devil cultivation base did not have to face the bottleneck of the renouncing void realm. Ning Fan had also completely mastered the dark yin-yang and absorbed it into his body, turning it into his cultivation base. The 100-year-old copper pagodas here had been destroyed, leaving 78 11-story copper pagodas and 9 12-story copper pagodas. The 11th floor of the pagoda was sealed for 1,000 years, and the 12th floor was sealed for 10,000 years. Without any obstruction, he easily entered the pagoda. He entered a total of 26 pagoda before he managed to refine all the remaining dark time fruits. In total, Ning Fan had cultivated in the space of the Copper Pagoda for more than 40,000 years. To the outside world, 40,000 years of bitter cultivation was but a blink of an eye. After 40,000 years of arduous cultivation, his ancient God realm cultivation base was still stuck at the peak of the crossing truth realm. The samsara void tribulation had yet to befall him. However, in terms of the density of his magic power, it was already comparable to Shitsong late stage. The ancient demon's cultivation was also stuck at the peak of Duzhen Peak, and the thickness of the demon's spiritual power was comparable to the Shedding Kong late-stage demon cultivator. Ancient Devil didn't encounter any bottlenecks in his cultivation. Instead, he broke through to the 7th nirvana of the Sky Devil, the same level as the Shedding Void late stage. Ning Fan could casually use any one of the 3 powers of the divine, demon and devil races, and he would be ranked among the top experts of the late Shedding Void realm. If he uses the power of the 3 races at the same time, Ning Fan was confident that he could defeat a peak stage demon cultivator. Of course, if he uses the power of his tribulation blood, Ning Fan would be an ancient immortal venerated. After consuming all the dark time fruits, the opportunity he had in the past was considered to have been used up. If he still wants to improve his cultivation base in the future, he would need to rely on other methods. I have already consumed all the heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures I have. If I continue to cultivate in the Time Tower, it will just be a waste of time. It won't be of much use to me. Why don't I keep these Time Towers for the time being and use them in the future? Ning Fan made up his mind. He turned around and asked the strange eyeball. Can I take all of the towers here? Of course you can. If you help me kill Inemo, I can give you all of the towers here. The strange eyeball was stunned for a moment and then said straightforwardly. That's good. I have completed all my cultivation. Next, let's talk about the important matter. You want to kill Inemo. What's your plan? Ning Fan's 40,000 years of bitter cultivation was just a moment to the outside world. The strange phenomenon of the barbarian god fighting against the heavens had just dissipated. At the highest point of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court, Inmo's stone statue wore a gloomy expression. He did not expect that the 10th barbarian god would be born in the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. Moreover, the power of this person's punishment was so strong that it was simply unheard of. The power of this person's punishment is 12 times stronger than mine. Who exactly is this person? Could it be that junior? Inemo sensed for a while. Soon, he realized that the blessing technique that he planted in Ning Fan's body had been broken. Humph! It wasn't easy for me to find a perfect body. He actually broke free from my curse technique. Could it be that the person who became the 10th barbarian god is really this person? There are still 24 hours before my great tribulation of imperfection. The right eye probably won't let go of such an opportunity. It will definitely come and plot against me. If it was in the past, I wouldn't be afraid of it. But now, Inmo's eyes narrowed slightly. This time, the 10th barbarian god had intervened in the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. If these changes were related to the right eye, then he could not afford to be careless in his confrontation with the right eye this time. He must be more cautious. Forget it. 7th ancestor of the Fan clan, even though I don't fancy your body, it's not completely useless. I will accept this body without hesitation. From now on, until my next tribulation of imperfection arrives, all the cultivators on the 9th floor will be my life sacrifice. A gray shadow suddenly walked out from Inmo's stone statue. The gray shadow was extremely illusory. Its cultivation base was only at the early crossing truth realm. Looking at its appearance, it was clearly the same as Inmo. His left eye was still there while his right eye was empty, as if it had been gouged out by someone. It was badly mutilated. This shadow was none other than a trace of Inmo's primordial spirit that was separated from his sealed primordial spirit. It was clearly just an early crossing truth realm primordial spirit, but it made the seventh ancestor's expression change greatly. Impossible. You can actually ignore immortal sovereign Zido's seal and separate a trace of your primordial spirit from your body. How is this possible? Rumble. What responded to the seventh ancestor was the sound of the sky collapsing. 6 bloody holes suddenly appeared in the sky. Each of the bloody holes sealed an ancient coffin that was dripping with blood. Among them, the 6th ancient coffin actually had a crack on it. Once, immortal sovereign Zido extracted Yin Mo's primordial spirit, divided it into 6 parts, and sealed each of them. After countless years, a trace of Yin Mo's primordial spirit finally escaped. However, it was still not enough. Yin Mo didn't want a trace of primordial spirit to be reborn. He wanted 6 primordial spirits to return to 1. You can leave it for the last to eat. Eat the others first. Yin Mo's body swayed and instantly disappeared from the center of the stone forest. At the same time, the entire 9th floor began to shake violently. The 7-colored seal that blocked the group of cultivators outside the first palace was cracking and cracking. The seal has been broken. The ancient passage is destined to belong to our demon race. Humph, it belongs to our human race. Charge. If we can seize the passage this time, we will definitely get a generous reward. The moment the seal was broken, hundreds of flowing lights burst out toward the top of the imperial court. Among them were Ao Xian, Lu He, and other immortal venerables. However, at this moment, a gray shadow blocked the group of cultivators with an indifferent expression as if he was looking at ants. Yin Mo, order the 9 heavens imperial court to seal. Chapter 946. Yin Mo, order the 9 heavens imperial court to seal. Yin Mo's avatar stood in front of the 100 cultivators. A blood-red seal word suddenly appeared in his left eye. An unimaginable power that forbade space swept across the entire 9th level with Yin Mo as the center. A blood-red seal word appeared on the foreheads of the 100 cultivators. They fell from the sky and couldn't fly anymore. Their expressions changed drastically. Even Ao Xian and Lu He, who were immortal venerables, were shocked. They looked at Yin Mo in shock. Who is this person? He can form such a terrifying power that forbade space with just a flip of his hand. This kind of power is unheard of. Has Zido's immortal cultivation become so weak? He can't even stand in the air in front of my avatar. Yin Mo shook his head slightly. He raised his withered hand and grabbed forward. The power of this grab seemed to be able to trap the souls of heaven and earth in his palm and crush them into pieces. In an instant, more than 10 sky renhuang and thought-fragmenting old monsters were turned into blood mist. Yin Mo opened his mouth and swallowed all of them. Even their primordial spirits and demonic souls couldn't escape. After swallowing some cultivators, Yin Mo's avatar's aura became much stronger. The flesh of cultivators from the illusionary world tastes terrible, Yin Mo said indifferently. The crowd felt a chill in their hearts again. This person could easily kill more than 10 sky renhuang and thought-fragmenting old monsters with just a lift of his hand. Even an immortal king couldn't do that so easily. Who is this person? Is he an immortal king? Why did he appear? Why did he kill people? Could it be that he's also here for the ancient passage? Ao Xian secretly used the connate power of the Brahma demon Jian. He was the first one to shatter the blood seal word and break the power that forbade space on him. Just as he was guessing Yin Mo's intention, he suddenly felt his hair stand on end. He raised his head and saw Yin Mo's cold and scrutinizing gaze. For some reason, Ao Xian saw a trace of hatred in Yin Mo's eyes. He didn't know this person at all. Why would he hate him? The next moment, Yin Mo directly raised his palm and pressed a 5-fingered palm print in his direction across the air. Ancestral dragon Zhu Li's descendant? Let me see how much tolerance his descendant has. In Ao Xian's eyes, the seemingly ordinary withered palm was like a 5-fingered mountain, and it gave him a feeling of invincibility. Ao Xian seemed to have seen an illusion. He seemed to have seen this palm, covering the sky, the Tao, the mountains and the seas, the sun, the moon, and the stars, overturning the past and present. It was as if he could see the souls of billions of experts buried beneath this withered palm. Many of them were countless times stronger than him. Impossible! Who was this person? To think that he had killed so many experts. He must have killed immortal emperors and quasi-saints. Countless souls must have perished in his hands. Ao Xian's body trembled uncontrollably. His Dao heart was already filled with fear before the battle. No, I can't be afraid. With a Khanate Dharma treasure in hand, I might not necessarily lose to this person. Ao Xian roared, and his demonic body instantly grew as tall as the sky. He waved the Brahma demonic dual truncheons and struck out with all his might against the Yin ink palm print. A single strike from this swordbreaker had the power to destroy worlds. He firmly believed that even if he was no match for Yinma, he wouldn't be defeated in one blow. However, the truth was far beyond his expectations. The palm print swept all the way down, and everywhere it passed, the sky strangely petrified. In the blink of an eye, the palm landed on the Brahma demon Jian. In the blink of an eye, the Brahma demon rapier turned gray as it turned to stone. After it turned to stone, it lost all of its power. With a loud boom, it shattered into countless rocks and fell from the sky. That palm continued to descend, pressing down on the top of Ao Xian's head. Ao Xian's body instantly turned to stone, then his body started to shatter from the top of his head, turning into countless boulders. Ao Xian, a dignified celestial venerable with a Khanate Dharma treasure, was actually unable to withstand the power of Yinmo's palm. With just one strike, the treasure was destroyed and the person was dead. That was close. If not for my demon soul escaping at the last moment, I would have definitely died. As the dust settled, Ao Xian's demon soul appeared in front of everyone. His expression was one of extreme fear. Very few immortal emperors would be able to shatter Xiantian treasures. The toughness of Xiantian treasures was known throughout the world, yet it was shattered by Yin Mo with a single strike. This person was too strong, just like Zhao Jian. He was definitely not someone he could defeat. Damn it! The ancient passageway was so close. Why did such a malevolent star appear and start a massacre here? That's right. A mere immortal venerable was actually able to preserve your life from me. You are qualified to stay alive and become my life's sacrifice. Yinmo's left eye shot out a ray of gray light that hit the center of Ao Xian's demon soul's brows. Ao Xian screamed and disappeared. No one knew where he was taken by Yinmo. Ooh? You are the 9th god of barbarians. The barbarian ancestors of the Fan clan finally recognized Yinmo. Their expressions changed. Didn't the intelligence say that the 9th god of barbarians was suppressed at the top of the Heaven Imperial Court and couldn't escape? Why did he come out and start a massacre here? The few of you are also the barbarian ancestors of the Fan clan, right? If that's the case, stay. Without giving the barbarian ancestors a chance to speak, Yin Mo used Xing Shan's power and took the 3 barbarian ancestors away. With Xing Shan's power, the 3 barbarian ancestors couldn't resist at all. In just a few breaths' time, there was only 6 directions left among the immortal venerables. There were still 80 to 90 human and demon cultivators left. Yinmo didn't plan to waste any more time. With a flash, he flew into the crowd and started a massacre. Most of the cultivators were killed by him and their flesh was devoured. There were also some that Yinmo didn't kill for now. Instead, he took them away as if they still had some use for them. The more flesh and blood he devoured, the stronger the aura of Yinmo's clone became. 6 directions felt that he was invincible. At this moment, 6 directions and the rest of the cultivators were not in the mood to fight for the ancient passageway anymore. They had to save their lives first. Leave this place quickly. 6 directions immortal venerables spat out a mouthful of blood and forcefully broke the heart-blood character on his glabella. With a wave of his sleeve, he led a large group of human cultivators and fled towards the 8th level. The demon cultivators weren't so lucky. Without the protection of the immortal venerables, they instantly became Yinmo's first targets. The descendants of ancestor dragon Zhu Li, the descendants of the ferocious demon Qi Thong, the descendants of the great demon Shen Ku. The more demon cultivators he killed, the colder Yin Mo's eyes became. When he betrayed the Purple Dipper immortal domain, he was chased by countless Purple Dipper immortal cultivators. Among them were many ancient great demons. Many of the demon cultivators who entered the Nine Heavens Imperial Court were the descendants of those great demons. All of them deserved to be killed. Soon, apart from a few demon cultivators who were captured alive to be sacrificed, most of them were devoured by him. At this moment, 6 Directions Immortal Venerables had already led the rest of the human cultivators into the 8th level. Yin Mo's eyes narrowed. With a flash, he disappeared from the 9th level and appeared in front of 6 Directions and the others. The current Purple Dipper immortal cultivators don't even have the courage to fight to the death. My eyes are the mountains. A ray of gray light shot out from Yin Mo's right eye and formed the image of 9 mountains in the sky. They were all gray stone mountains. My killing as the sea. Under the 9 mountains, there were 8 more layers of the Sea of Massacre. The stench of blood filled the sky. They were formed by Yin Mo's lifetime of killing. My soul as the tree. In the center of the Sea of Massacre, a 10,000 zhang tall stone vine tree suddenly grew out. On the stone vine tree, there was a gray eyeball. It was Yin Mo's left eye. Inside the eyeball, 12 crescent moons rotated strangely, emitting endless illusory power. All the human cultivators, including 6 Directions, lost their consciousness at this moment. Their faces were blank as if they had fallen into an illusory spell. My illusions are the prison palace. The space in the entire 8th level kept shattering. Countless stone vines grew out from the cracks in the void and bound the human cultivators tightly. The vines seemed to have poisonous thorns on them. Once they bound a cultivator, they would immediately fall into a coma. Many vines wriggled strangely and devoured the flesh and blood of many cultivators, leaving only empty human skins behind. After a long time, the entire 8th level was in dead silence. Regardless of whether it was the people who had escaped to the 8th level or the cultivators who had not made it to the 9th level in time, they were all bound to the stone trees and turned into their nourishment. The current Purple Dipper immortal cultivators are really weak. Killing these people is too boring. A gray light flashed in Yin Mo's left eye. The 1,000 zhang tall stone tree disappeared and countless empty human skins fell from the sky. Of course, those cultivators who were not killed by the stone tree, such as 6 Directions, were captured alive by Yin Mo and used for other purposes. Yin Mo sensed that all the cultivators in the 9 Heavens Imperial Court should have been killed by him. What was going to happen next was not something that the Purple Dipper immortal cultivators outside the desolate land could watch. Once he was free, he would go outside and kill all the immortal emperors of the illusion world. Those people should be able to bring him some joy of revenge. Yin Mo turned around and returned to the 9th level. Before he left, he suddenly turned around and let out a cold harumph as if his gaze could pierce through countless realms. With that harumph, the painted skin projection of the demon Yen in the outside world immediately shattered into pieces with a loud bang. At the same time, the giant monument that Meng Xuanzi had created also collapsed and was destroyed. That cold harumph even crossed the boundary of the ancient savage realm and reached the ears of every immortal emperor. It was like a thunderclap. That voice carried all the killing that Yin Mo had done in his life. Some of the immortal emperors with weaker cultivation were shocked by that voice and their seas of consciousness were immediately injured. Even the ancient emperor of Sky reaching ancient emperor and the true dragon clan head, who were at the level of quasi-sages, were shaken by Yin Mo's snort. Who is this person? In the 4 heavens and 9 realms, this person is almost invincible. How could such a strong cultivator appear in the 9 heavens imperial court? The immortal emperors of the 2 clans were shocked. There were more and more changes in the 9 heavens imperial court. They didn't expect such a malevolent star to appear at the last moment. With the strength of one person, he killed all the cultivators of the 2 clans who were fighting for the passage. With a voice that separated the realms, He directly injured more than 100 immortal emperors. Is this person here to fight for the ancient passage? This is troublesome. With this person here, it's going to be difficult to fight for the ancient passage. Mo's figure flickered and returned to the stone forest at the top of the 9th level. The 7th ancestor was still standing in the stone forest and didn't run away. It wasn't that he didn't want to run, but his body had been completely petrified by the light of the gray moon. He stood there like a stone statue and couldn't move. Mo waved his hand and more stone statues appeared in the empty stone forest. Among them were the stone statues of Ao Xian, Lu He, the first generation of the Fan clan, the 2nd ancestor, and the 4th ancestor. There were also more than 10 other stone statues. Without exception, these stone statues were all people who were captured alive by Mo. Their expressions were more or less filled with fear. There was still a bit of life aura inside their stone statues that hadn't dissipated. There are still 24 hours before the K tribulation arrives. Right, I'm looking forward to fusing with you again this time. Mo's avatar walked towards his own stone statue step by step, allowing his avatar to fuse with the stone statue again. Time passed bit by bit. 6 hours later, the gray moon in the sky of the 9th level suddenly changed. That gray moon was originally a full moon, but as time passed, the scene of a heavenly dog eating the moon appeared. 12 hours later, the gray moon was only left with half a crescent moon. 18 hours later, the gray moon was only left with the outline of a halo. 24 hours later, the gray moon completely disappeared. Without the moonlight, the entire 9th level was dark. Only the stone gate at the center of the stone forest that had been standing for a long time gradually emitted a strange light. That stone gate was the ancient tunnel that the immortal emperors of the 2 clans had painstakingly schemed for. It connected the illusory world and the 3 great true worlds. The light on the stone gate became brighter and brighter. Gradually, lines of ancient words appeared on it. Very few cultivators of the 2nd step could see those words clearly. The brighter the light of the words became, the weaker the aura of the Mo statue became. It was as if his cultivation base and everything he had were offered to the stone gate, becoming the source of power for the words on the stone gate to light up. The weakest moment had finally arrived. Time is up. This is the moment when I am at my weakest. Right, I know you are here. Come out. The Mo statue suddenly let out an ancient roar. For some unknown reason, that roar was able to stir up the Tao law of undying, turning it into a divine ability. As it swept through the area, it immediately stirred up a violent gust of wind in the world. The space in this place was shaken by that roar. It turned into countless broken lines and separated from each other as if it was silk. A muffled groan was heard. With a monstrous hatred, the eyeball fell out of the crack in space and glared at the Mo statue. You still have the face to use Big Brother Undying's divine ability. How shameless. Right, I didn't expect that after so many years, you still don't understand. I didn't betray Zido Immortal Region. It was Undying who betrayed the mortal world. We were originally cultivators of the mortal world and belonged to the Berserker tribe. It was the most suitable thing for me to return to the Berserker tribe and inherit the throne of the god of Berserkers. But he abandoned himself and served immortal Emperor Zido as his master. He worked hard for the cultivators of the mortal world and stopped us from unifying the true world. If he doesn't die, he will be the shame of the mortal world. The Mo statue said. There is no point in arguing. Today, I will definitely kill you. The eyeball retreated slightly. A gray light flashed in its eyes. Instantly, millions of silver rays appeared in the 9th layer. They intertwined with each other and formed an extremely complicated formation. The formation surrounded the Mo statue and the entire stone forest in the center. There was an altar in each of the 4 directions. On top of each altar, there was an innate magical treasure. Mo, in order to kill you, I have spent countless years and used 4 innate magical treasures to create a killing formation. Today, you must die. Azure Dragon suppresses East. On the altar in the east, a azure dragon treasure seal turned into a 10,000 feet long dragon and soared into the sky. Azure Dragon Treasure Seal. After not seeing you for so many years, your refining skills have improved a lot. Unfortunately, your cultivation is still too weak, Mo said indifferently. White tiger suppresses west. Vermilion bird suppresses south. Black tortoise suppresses north. On the altars in the west, south, and north, 3 treasure seals also turned into 10,000 feet long strange beasts and soared into the sky. Each of the 4 beasts guarded one direction. The whole world seemed to be confined. The formation is not bad. The 4 innate treasure seals are also not bad. This formation can cut off my connection with the world and keep me in my weakest state. But it's a pity that these methods are not enough to kill me. You have the confinement formation, but I have 100,000 protectors. You are only a 7th tribulation realm cultivator. How can you fight against 100,000 immortal venerables? You can't do it. As soon as Mo's voice fell, ancient coffins appeared in the sky one after another. Ancient corpses that were comparable to ancient immortal venerables crawled out of the coffins and formed a formation above the stone forest. I, Zido Immortal Realm Cultivator, defy the tribulations to survive. I have no regrets, life and death, for Zido Immortal Realm Cultivator. The strange eyeball's eyes immediately turned red when it saw the 100,000 ancient corpses. Without exception, all the ancient corpses here had fought for Zido Immortal Realm when they were alive. However, because of Mo's betrayal, they did not die in the battlefield. Instead, they died in Mo's hands. If one cultivated the barbarian path and knew the mountain and sea mantra, one would be able to hear the grief and indignation of these dead cultivators. Killing him all, killing him all, killing him all. The soul voices of the 100,000 immortal realm cultivators were so uniform. Not only did Mo kill his companions, but he also refined their corpses into puppets using the Undying Emperor's puppet technique. Today, he would pay the price for his actions. Brat, do it. As soon as the strange eyeball's voice fell, an ear-piercing sword chime resounded across heaven and earth. A ghost-faced silver-haired figure suddenly broke through the void and walked out from the other end of the void. As soon as this person appeared, the 100,000 immortal venerables began to tremble. They actually felt a fatal sense of danger from this person. If it's not Ning Fan, who else could it be? Mo, who had always been arrogant, had a serious expression on his face for the first time. As expected, he's the one you're relying on. I can't confirm if this young man possesses the power of punishment. Could he be the 10th barbarian god? He was not afraid of the 7th ancestor of the Fan clan, the Right Eye, or the 100 great sovereigns of the 2 clans. It was only Ning Fan who gave him a sense of danger for the first time. The moment Ning Fan swung his sword, the sense of danger instantly rose to its peak. The undying chi of heaven and earth became chaotic because of Ning Fan alone, as if it had met its natural enemy. This child is actually the successor of ancient chaos. Chapter 947. Ning Fan held a 3 chi long sword and stepped out of the void, appearing in front of the 100,000 ancient corpses. The sword in his hand was fiery red. It was a 12 Nirvana immortal sword. He had obtained it from the eyeball in order to execute the human sword slaying technique. The 12 Nirvana immortal sword was not enough to make the 100,000 ancient corpses fearful. However, the moon-white sword light emitted by this immortal sword was enough to make any ancient corpse shudder. This was the ancient chaos absolute technique, life-slaying sword. It was used to slay undying beings in this world. The inheritor of ancient chaos. It's actually the inheritor of ancient chaos. So that's how it is Mo's expression became even more solemn, as if he had understood many things in an instant. No wonder so many ancient corpses died mysteriously in the past. It turned out that it was the inheritor of ancient chaos's doing. Mo was an evil corpse created by the Undying Emperor. He possessed part of his undying memories. How could he not know how terrifying the life-slaying sword was? The undying emperor had never been defeated by an immortal emperor of the same level as him. With his undying physique, not even desolate saints could kill him. However, such a powerful figure was once defeated by the ancient Chaos Emperor. The more powerful an undying being was, the more they would fear the power of the life-slaying sword. The undying emperor was no exception. Even if there were 100,000 undying ancient corpses protecting him today, they would probably be killed by the life-slaying sword with just a single slash. Interesting. I didn't expect my right eye to gain the upper hand in the first confrontation of the great tribulation of surplus and deficiency. Having the help of ancient chaos's inheritor is enough to restrain the undying power in my body. Unfortunately, the undying power isn't my only power. Right eye, can you give me more surprises? After the initial shock, Yin Mo's expression became indifferent again. He knew that the 100,000 ancient corpses would most likely die in Ning Fan's hands. However, he didn't care. Roar! 100,000 ancient corpses roared at the same time. Even though they were afraid of Ning Fan's life-slaying sword, they still attacked him out of instinct. Those roars were as barbaric as beasts. They were obviously not human language, but somehow, they carried a kind of desolate emotion that could touch one's heart. They could hear it and even see it. Ning Fan closed his eyes. It was as if he could hear the sound of the souls of these ancient corpses that had been lingering in the mountains and seas for millions of years. The god-exterminating shield in his dantian emitted traces of undying power, causing Ning Fan to resonate with the heaven and earth in a strange way. At this moment, scenes from ancient times began to appear in his mind. One day, the undying emperor killed the evil corpse and gave it the name Yin. Evil corpse, I want a promise from you. Promise me that you will accompany me to protect the Purple Dipper Galaxy for all eternity. On that day, Yin Mo knelt before the undying emperor and swore an oath. The Purple Dipper immortals are above me, and I cultivate Yin Inc. Since I was born to slay evil, I should inherit the will of the venerable emperor. Although they were evil corpses, they would definitely be upright and upright. They would not let down the heavens and earth, and they would not let down the Purple Dipper. From now on, he would live for Zido and die for Zido. If I break this oath, I will be killed by the heavens. Countless years passed, and Yin Mo's cultivation grew higher and higher. He replaced the undying and headed to the border of the Purple Do celestial domain, the defying Dust Sea. There was a protective formation that immortal Emperor Zido had spent countless years to set up. If the formation was still there, even some fourth-step cultivators would not be able to break into the Purple Do immortal domain. On that day, a red sun suddenly rose from the defying Dust Sea. A man holding a red horsetail whisk walked out from the red sun. No one could see the man's appearance clearly. It was as if no one in this world could see his appearance if he did not allow it. The man wore a fiery red feather cloak. He walked towards Yin Mo step by step. All the cities he passed by turned into ruins and disappeared in the dust. I need you to help me complete a task. After you complete this task, I will grant you the Tai Tsong bloodline and give you the chance to stand above the three realms. If someone else said this to Yin Mo, he would certainly not believe it. However, the red-robed man in front of him was a great figure that Yin Mo could only look up to. His promise was definitely not a lie. On that day, Yin Mo opened the protective formation of the defying Dust Sea. Countless cultivators of the mortal world led by the red-robed man invaded the Purple Do immortal domain. On that day, Yin Mo resolutely changed sides and killed the billions of Purple Do immortal cultivators under his command. When the flames of war spread across the Purple Do galaxy and the news of the battle reached the undying Demon Palace, the undying emperor slammed the table and rushed towards the defying Dust Sea. He wanted to personally kill the traitor who went against his oath and invited the enemy into his domain. However, it was already too late. After Yin Mo defected, he fled into the mortal world and was sheltered under the wings of the Tai Tsong tribulation spirit. It was as difficult as ascending to heaven to kill him. In a rage, the undying emperor crossed the defying Dust Sea and killed his way into the mortal world just to kill the traitor. However, he failed and was suppressed by the Tai Tsong tribulation spirit. his body was dismembered under the Nine-Li Mountain. After that, the Purple Do immortal domain fell into the flames of war. After that, Mo became the 9th barbarian god of the barbarian race. He stepped on the corpses of his companions and obtained the recognition of the Tai Tsong tribulation spirit. However, he mysteriously disappeared after one of his seclusion. Only a few people knew that it was immortal Emperor Zido who used the last of his strength to capture the traitor and suppress him in the Nine Heavens imperial court. The scenes were fragmented, but they contained too many ancient secrets that remained in the mountains and seas. Ning Fan was not a saint. He did not have the ability to see through the past, the present, and the future. However, he managed to do so by relying on his superb understanding of the mountains and seas mantra. Killing him. Kill this traitor. If I don't kill this traitor, I won't be able to avenge the destruction of the Purple Do immortal domain. Kill, kill, kill. The soul voices of the 100,000 ancient corpses lingered in the mountains and seas. All of them carried a monstrous hatred towards Mo. They desired to kill Mo to pay homage to the millions of Purple Do immortal cultivators. However, what was sad was that even their corpses had become Mo's puppets. The soul voices of the 100,000 ancient corpses were filled with sorrow like the fallen leaves at the end of autumn. They fell on Ning Fan's heart. After all, Ning Fan was not a true Purple Do immortal cultivator. It was difficult for him to understand the sorrow of these cultivators who had their countries destroyed. The only thing he could do was to send these martyrs off. 10 rays, 100 rays, 1,000 rays. More and more moon-white sword rays surrounded Ning Fan's body. In the end, the number had reached 10 million rays. Under the support of the 10 million rays of life-severing sword chi, the strength of Ning Fan's chi had completely surpassed the boundary of the second step and reached the third step. What kind of feeling is this? It's indescribable. Ning Fan's figure was unprecedentedly ethereal. His eyes carried the might of heaven and earth. They were so indifferent that there was not a single trace of emotion in them. That gaze was as if he was looking at everything in the world like a dog that could not arouse the slightest interest. His body began to feel excruciating pain as if he was on the verge of collapsing. Ning Fan believed that if it wasn't for the great increase in his cultivation base and the protection of the heaven-opening treasure, he certainly would not be able to withstand the power of the 10 million rays of sword light. If it's him in the past, he would definitely be killed by the boundless sword might. Crack, crack, crack. The 12 Nirvana immortal sword in his hand began to crack as if it could not withstand the sword light of this level. Ning Fan slowly waved the immortal sword. His movements were extremely slow. However, in the eyes of all the ancient corpses, there was an indescribable chill. Dangerous. It's very dangerous. What level of sword technique is this? It has definitely surpassed the scope of the second step. The ancient corpses that were rushing towards Ning Fan were stopped 1,000 zhang away from him by the invisible sword might. The 100,000 ancient corpses surrounded Ning Fan. The area within a radius of 1,000 zhang had turned into a circle of vacuum. The sword was like a circle. The trajectory of the sword was flawless. It had achieved perfection. The Tao of sword that countless sword cultivators had painstakingly pursued for was casually executed by Ning Fan at this moment. Crack, crack, crack. The immortal sword was already on the verge of breaking. At this moment, Ning Fan swung out a sword attack that could not be replicated. As soon as the sword fell, the entire heaven and earth seemed to have turned into a circle. The moon-white sword light flowed like water in the circle, flowing past the ancient corpses. Wherever it passed, all of the ancient corpses that were comparable to immortal venerables turned into ashes without exception. In just an instant, they were all cut into ashes by the supreme sword intent. There was no way to resist it. There was no way to defeat it. After 13 breaths of time, the 100,000 ancient corpses had all turned into ashes. Ning Fan could no longer withstand the destructive power of the sword. Under the ghost mask, his face turned pale. Traces of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Obviously, he had suffered a heavy backlash. As for the immortal sword in his hand, it had already completely shattered into countless iron pieces with a cracking sound, scattering all over the ground. Brat, well done. Now that the 100,000 ancient corpses have been destroyed, Nemo will definitely die today. The eyeball monster burst into laughter. Is that so? Do you really think that you can kill me without the protection of 100,000 ancient corpses? This brat's life-slaying sword technique has great destructive power against pure undying beings. However, I don't only have the power of undying. The life-slaying sword technique is ineffective against me. The Nemo stone statue said indifferently. If this brat only has these techniques, he naturally can't kill you. However, he has another identity. Brat, there's no time for you to rest. Do it now. The eyeball monster shouted. Ning Fan nodded his head and wiped off the trace of blood from the corner of his mouth. With the help of these traces of blood, he suddenly squatted down and slammed his palm on the ground. Immediately, circles of blood-red halos appeared on the ground. A blood-red altar was rising from the ground bit by bit. Using blood as a guide to summon the trump card hidden in the formation, The Nemo stone statue frowned slightly. He did not expect that there would actually be a fifth altar in the grand formation laid by the eyeball monster. Each of the 4 altars was guarded by an innate treasure seal. As for the fifth altar, there was no innate treasure seal at all. There was only an ancient crossbow bed placed on top of it. This is the ancient country's god-slaying crossbow. No, the real god-slaying crossbow should have already been destroyed. Is this just a replica? Nemo said disdainfully. You will have to pay the price for underestimating a replica. Brother Zhu, it's up to you now. For the sake of your old brother, you have to cooperate with your master. The eyeball monster laughed strangely. Don't worry, big brother. Your enemy is this little brother's enemy. Wherever the tip of your sword points, this little brother's arrow will land. Master, let's do it. My bowstring is already tired. Candlebow's voice suddenly resounded from the crossbow bed. He did not expect that the cowardly Candlebow would also draw his bow against a strong enemy for the sake of loyalty. Ning Fan was secretly amazed. His figure flashed and appeared on the fifth altar. He raised his hand and pressed on the mechanism of the crossbow bed. This crossbow bed was an imitation of the once supreme treasure of the ancient barbarian world, the god-slaying crossbow of the ancient country. Even though it was just an imitation magic treasure, it had more restrictions compared to the real god-slaying crossbow. Only the barbarian god could activate this crossbow. Faint golden light began to shine from Ning Fan's body. In the vast sky, golden punishment mountains kept appearing one after another. Under Ning Fan's control, the overwhelming might of the punishment mountains swept towards the Nemo stone statue. The gray sky was illuminated by the golden light. At this moment, the might of Ning Fan's 36 punishment mountains was pressing down on Nemo's body. Nemo tried to summon his 3 punishment mountains to resist this kind of might. However, just as he summoned them, the 3 punishment mountains crumbled once again. Just like before, they could not appear in front of Ning Fan. As the 9th barbarian god, he could feel the heavenly might from Ning Fan's body. At the same time, he was also a barbarian god. However, his might was much weaker than Ning Fan's. Even with Nemo's temperament, he still felt dissatisfied and snorted. As expected, you are the newly born 10th barbarian god. There are actually 36 punishment mountains. Unfortunately, I am also a barbarian god. If you only use your might, you won't be able to suppress me. What responded to Nemo was the sound of sharp arrows piercing through the air. In the blink of an eye, 36 golden arrows were shot out from the crossbow bed. Nemo was different from Shizihua. He was not the shadow of the mountains and seas. Instead, he was a living barbarian god who had 3 punishment mountains. Ning Fan could not suppress Nemo with just the might of the punishment mountains. Even if he used the punishment mountains, it might not have much effect. Thus, the eyeball monster came up with a plan. He decided to use the imitation god-slaying crossbow to gather the might of the punishment mountains and turn them into tangible arrows to attack Nemo. Such golden arrows were almost harmless to cultivators who were not barbarian cultivators. However, They posed a fatal threat to Inemo. Not a single one of the 36 golden arrows missed. They all shot into the shadow inkstone statue. Everything happened in an instant. Inemo's avatar's expression changed greatly, and he flew out of the stone statue. As he flew out, the 36 arrow lights followed closely behind him, chasing after him. Even though he managed to escape, his body was still pierced by a few bloody holes. Even with his cultivation base, he could not heal those wounds. Any one of the 36 golden arrows was enough to kill an immortal Emperor Realm barbarian cultivator. When the 36 arrows combined, it was enough to kill all barbarian cultivators who were below the Saint Realm. Even Inemo did not dare to take it head-on. The only pity was that the imitation god-slaying crossbow seemed to be unable to withstand the might of the 36 arrows. With a loud bang, it exploded into pieces on the ground. It could no longer be used. What a pity! Die. Even if you have the crow's feather bestowed by that person, don't even think about surviving these arrows. The eyeball monster's expression was unprecedentedly excited. Inemo's life or death depended on this attack. It would be great if he could kill Inemo in one shot. Even if he could not, it should be enough to destroy Inemo's life-saving treasure. Even though your attack is strong, it's not enough for me to use the tribulation feather bestowed by his lordship. I'm different from when I still had my right eye. I'll show you the new technique I've learned over the years. Bone sacrifice. Seeing that he could not escape the 36 arrows, Inemo stopped running. Instead, he broke off one of his fingers and turned it into a white bone club. There was the totem of Kuan Peng overturning the seas on the bone club. Its aura was extremely strange. When it was weak, it seemed like an ordinary object. But when it was strong, it exuded an innate aura and gave people the feeling that it was a living thing. Inemo raised the bone club. It immediately split into 36 pieces, and each of them shot towards a golden arrow. The powerful collision caused the space of the 9th level of the Heaven Imperial Court to become unstable. It began to collapse crazily, and then the entire 9 Heavens Imperial Court began to shake violently. Inemo's avatar kept coughing up blood. It was extremely difficult for him to use the bone club. Every second, his avatar would be seriously injured. However, the effect was also very obvious. Every time the arrow light hit the bone club, it would be strangely weakened. It was as if the bone club was swallowing their power. After more than 10 breaths, the 36 arrow light were all swallowed by the bone club. The collapse of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court finally stopped. The bone club did not suffer any damage. The only change was that after swallowing the golden arrow attack, the totem of the Kuan Peng on the bone club became much more agile. Impossible! You didn't get the recognition of the Sage Sect. How could you refine this Sage Sect's artifact? The eyeball monster was shocked. He already knew that Inemo obtained this bone club, but he did not expect that Inemo could control the power of the bone club. It should be known that before he was suppressed in the 9 Heavens Imperial Court, Inemo had spent a lot of effort to refine this object. However, he was unable to refine and subdue it. Unexpectedly, he succeeded today. The origin of this bone club was not simple. Although it was not a heaven-opening artifact, there were not many innate experts who could defeat it. After all, this treasure was once used as a Sage Sect's artifact and was raised in the 6 paths of reincarnation for countless years. Its power was naturally not to be underestimated. However, there was one thing that the eyeball monster could not understand. The Sage Sect's artifact could only be used by cultivators who possessed the bloodline of the Sage Sect. Why could Inemo use the artifact of the Sage Sect? Inemo's avatar became much weaker. Using the bone club seemed to consume a lot of his energy. However, his eyes flashed with a bloodthirsty light. Although you are my right eye, there are many things that you don't know. When I betrayed the Purple Doe Immortal Domain and obtained the recognition of that lord, what he gave me was not only the life-saving tribulation feather. What a pity! It seems that you still can't kill me this time. That may not be true. After the eyeball monster was slightly disappointed, his eyes burst out with a stronger battle intent. He set up a 4-sided grand formation to suppress Inemo's chi so that he could recover. He borrowed Yin Mo's strength to kill 100,000 ancient corpses and shoot out 36 punishment arrows. However, all of these were not his killing moves. This will be the last time. He had been separated from Yin Mo for many years. His cultivation base had always been stagnant while Yin Mo became stronger and stronger. He had already assassinated Yin Mo 12 times. The 12 surplus imperfection Great Tribulation. The barbarians took 12 as their reincarnation cycle. This time, it would be Yin Mo's last surplus imperfection Great Tribulation. If it wasn't for the fact that Yin Mo was currently extremely weak, his avatar would be able to block the 36 arrows even without using the bone club. Once the surplus imperfection Great Tribulation passes this time, Yin Mo would no longer be this weak. This was the last chance to kill Yin Mo. No matter what price he had to pay, he had to seize it. Little girl, I'm counting on you now. The 6th sacrificial altar, appear. The eyeball monster shot out a ray of gray light. Then, the 6th sacrificial altar appeared in the middle of the formation. There was a strange formation above the sacrificial altar. Faint black moonlight flowed on it. In front of the formation, there was an altar that was lit with incense and candles. In front of the altar stood a female cultivator who wore pink palace robes. She was none other than Miao Yen. This is the sacrificial extermination Dao formation. Yin Mo's expression suddenly turned cold. He did not expect that the right eye really wanted to fight him with its life this time. It even used such an extreme method. However, he did not know how much the undying Great Emperor's glory was worth for it to turn into the sacrificial extermination power of the Dao formation. The eyeball monster flew to the center of the formation and shot out a ray of gray light. That ray of gray light multiplied and turned into thousands of magical treasures. All of a sudden, they fell from the sky like raindrops and landed at the center of the formation. Miao Yen held the peachwood sword in her hand. At the moment the eyeball monster summoned its magical treasures, she began to cast a technique together with it. She did not know who they were going to deal with. However, this was considered as helping Ning Fan. Thus, she would not reject it. Every time a magical treasure exploded, there would be some black qi coming out from the eyeball. When the amount of black qi accumulated to a certain extent, it gradually turned into the totem of a black crescent moon. The first black crescent moon appeared in the eye of the eyeball monster and it rotated. As soon as the crescent moon appeared, the aura of the eyeball monster skyrocketed. Even though it had yet to reach the 8th tribulation realm, it was not far from it. It's still not enough. This time, I will kill you even if I have to use up all my resources. The eyeball monster shot out more rays of gray light. Countless heavenly materials and earthly treasures landed at the center of the formation and exploded one after another. There were rare and precious pills, spiritual herbs, various spiritual ores and immortal materials in them. After they exploded, the black qi in the eyeball monster's eye became thicker and thicker. The second black crescent moon was condensed. In the end, the eyeball monster even used up all of its Dao crystals. It who loved money as much as its life had really used up all of its resources. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th crescent moon were condensed one after another. When the 5th black crescent moon appeared, the aura of the eyeball monster skyrocketed to the 9th tribulation realm within a short period of time. However, it was still not enough. Small iron cage appear. Small iron spine appear. Small hammer appear. Small rake appear. Small slingshot. Small yellow flag. Small radish head. Small underpants. Small magical treasures with low-grade names were summoned by the eyeball monster without any hesitation. There were a total of 12 magical treasures and all of them were innate magical treasures. Without any hesitation, the eyeball monster exploded 12 innate magical treasures in a row. The 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th crescent moon were condensed one after another. When the 9th black moon appeared, the eyeball monster's aura had reached the quasi-saint realm within a short period of time. Moreover, it was not an ordinary quasi-saint realm expert. 9 black moons? If you can make 12 of them, you might really be able to fight against me. The current you is still not enough. Explode! A loud explosion was heard. This time, the eyeball monster actually blew itself up. Mo's left eye instantly widened. Obviously, he did not expect the eyeball monster to self-destruct. However, he soon understood the true intention of the eyeball monster. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Ning Fan's direction. What he saw was a black slit on Ning Fan's glabella where the divine star was shining. From the slit, an extremely wretched laughter could be heard. "Brat, lend me your body for a while. I want to use your body to kill old geezer Inemo." The slit was where Ning Fan's third eye was located. Now, it was occupied by the eyeball monster and became Ning Fan's third eye. 12 black crescent moons were rotating in Ning Fan's third eye. "Now our cultivation base is equal. Inemo, fight with this old man." Chapter 948. It had been many years since Ning Fan last used the ability of his third eye. That was when he was still in the rain world. With the help of the Pill Sovereign, Ning Fan managed to open his third eye. The initial use of this eye was just to identify the authenticity of spiritual herbs. Later on, Ning Fan entered the place where Six Desires' immortal king passed away and refined his eyeball, the desire-releasing pearl. From there, his eyesight improved to the level of the acquired law. His third eye's ability to identify things had also improved a lot. Unfortunately, it was still not very useful. After so many years, the third eye finally came in handy. It became the place where the eyeball monster possessed after it self-destructed. After possessing Ning Fan's body, the eyeball monster directly took over Ning Fan's body and transferred all of its power into Ning Fan's body. 12 black crescent moons rotated in his third eye like jade hooks. Ning Fan's chi began to rise. His cultivation base was at the ancient god realm among the 4 cultivation bases. The eyeball monster clearly possessed the cultivation base of the barbarian race. However, when it was transferred to Ning Fan's body, it turned into pure ancient god power. All of this seemed to be caused by the Black Moon Magatama. This kind of increase in cultivation base was only temporary. Just like a secret technique, it could not be sustained for too long. After defeating Inemo, Ning Fan's cultivation base would return to its original level. Even so, to Ning Fan, this was also a rare opportunity for him to experience the power of a higher realm with his own body. The phenomenon of the 4 true bridges of Tao execution appeared under Ning Fan's feet one after another. At the same time, there was also a miniature version of the true illusion river. Ning Fan's ancient god realm cultivation base kept increasing as if he had used a secret technique. Every time he advanced to a higher realm, there would be an additional reflection of him in the river: early void renunciation, mid-void renunciation, late void renunciation, peak void renunciation. Ning Fan's eyes flashed. He looked at the reflection in the true illusion river. The reflection was a little blurry and he could not see it clearly. His Jieshui cultivation base was comparable to the ancient immortal venerables. Unfortunately, the cultivation principle of Jieshui was completely different from the cultivation base of the divine race, demon race, and devil race. True crossing cultivators cultivated the true bridge above the river, while void renunciation cultivators cultivated the reflection under the river. Ning Fan suddenly had a feeling that his mind was blessed. He seemed to have grasped the key to attracting the heart tribulation and breaking through the void renunciation realm. Unfortunately, this was not the time to comprehend it. Thus, he could not think about it carefully. Early thought shattering, mid-thought shattering, late thought shattering, peak thought shattering. Ning Fan's cultivation base continued to rise. Finally, he could feel the power of the thought fragmentation realm. The reason why thought-shattering old monsters were stronger than shedding void cultivators was not only because of the difference in cultivation level, but also because thought-shattering old monsters possessed Tao intent. They could fuse Tao intent into their divine arts and form Tao intent arts. In the past, Ning Fan had created the West Wind technique when he was in the loneliness of falling leaves in the autumn. It was a technique of Tao sense. It shone brilliantly in the tomb competition and made Ning Fan famous. Tao sense was the key for thought-shattering cultivators to increase their cultivation. Ning Fan's cultivation base continued to rise. His cultivation base began to break through to the eternal ancient realm, which was after the third level of the true immortal realm. The eternal zero tribulation, the first tribulation, the second tribulation, the third tribulation, all the way until the ninth tribulation. As soon as his cultivation base entered the eternal ancient realm, the sovereign chi in his body began to fuse madly into his primordial spirit. After the fusion, his primordial spirit was dyed a faint golden color, and as his cultivation continued to rise, the golden color deepened. Eventually, Ning Fan's primordial spirit turned completely golden, just like most of the immortal emperors. A golden primordial spirit could only be possessed by immortal emperors. It was widely known in the world for being difficult to kill. At this moment, Ning Fan's chi was as strong as a 9-tribulation immortal emperor. However, his chi was still rising. In the end, it surpassed the range of the 9-tribulation immortal emperors and became as strong as a quasi-saint. Is this the power of a quasi-saint? It seems like there are still cultivation levels within the quasi-saint realm. Ning Fan was not clear about how the quasi-saint realm was divided. If he really wants to divide them, he could divide the quasi-saint realm into 3 steps. The weaker quasi-saints like the old ancestor of the godly void pavilion, Xiang Bozi, and the quasi-saint of the purple clan who took away the Sun Luo skull should be above the first step. Inemo, on the other hand, was a quasi-saint who was at the peak of the 3rd step. Ning Fan raised his head and looked at Inemo. The stronger his chi was, the more he could feel how terrifying Inemo was. If his true cultivation base is compared to a drop of water, Inmo's cultivation base would be like the rivers, lakes, and oceans which were vast and unfathomable. However, no matter how strong Inemo is, he has no reason to plot against me. Why would Ning Fan be afraid of fighting Inemo? The eyeball monster controlled Ning Fan's body and took a step forward. 12 black full moons suddenly appeared in the night sky. After the 12 full moons appeared, Ning Fan's chi also reached the 3rd step of the quasi-saint realm. Inemo, fight me! The eyeball monster roared. A wave of power that was extremely similar to the power of morning surged inside Ning Fan's body. If Ning Fan did not sense wrongly, what the eyeball monster was using was the morning black moon ability of the ancestral emperor of the northern heaven. Ning Fan also knew a little of the black moon ability. He had learned it in the World Tree world in the lower realm. Compared to Ning Fan's ability, the eyeball monster's ability was obviously more complete. It also had the same destructive power against people other than spiritual puppets. As Ning Fan raised his hand and pressed it down, black moonlight immediately fell from the sky like thousands of raindrops. Ancient morning finger like rain. While possessing Ning Fan's body, the eyeball monster could slightly use Ning Fan's ability. It actually turned the moonlight in the sky into a sudden night rain and swept towards Inemo. In the hands of the eyeball monster, this rain had terrifying power. A single drop of rain could kill a rogue immortal. 100 drops of profound ghost realm would die and 10,000 drops of Shikong void realm would die. The overwhelming rain was enough to severely injure all cultivators below the quasi-saint realm. It actually has a trace of the sovereign power of the Tao law of rain. Inmo's expression turned solemn. According to what he knew, the eyeball monster should only have one type of sovereign Tao law, and that was the Tao law of undying. After all, the undying void was still in the hands of the eyeball monster. If that's the case, the reason why the eyeball monster could use its power was because of Ning Fan. As the successor of ancient chaos, this young man's bone age was not high, but he had already cultivated a type of yin and yang. His aptitude was not bad. Unfortunately, this young man followed the wrong person. Following the right eye would only result in death. If the morning king himself comes, I would still be a little afraid. Unfortunately, with you using the black moon technique, it's useless no matter how many raindrops you turn into. Fire kill. Inemo opened his mouth and breathed out a stream of gray chi. As soon as the gray chi appeared, it turned into a sea of fire that covered half of heaven and earth. Before the raindrops could reach them, they were directly evaporated by the sea of fire. The immense fire primordial power made Inemo flicker in the flames, making it hard to see him clearly. At this moment, Mo seemed to have become the king of fire between heaven and earth. Wherever his gaze landed, everything could be incinerated with just a single thought from him. This is the sovereign power of the Tao of fire. Miao Yan's beautiful face turned slightly pale. Just now, Mo's gaze swept across her body from afar. All of a sudden, her primordial spirit actually felt a burning pain. Even her body felt like it was on fire. It was as if Mo could burn her into ashes with just a single gaze. It was as if she was spared from death only because Mo did not want to kill her. She was an immortal revered in the past 10,000 years. However, she did not even have the strength to withstand Mo's gaze. How could this man be so strong? Zhu Gong was equally shocked. The strength that Mo displayed was probably not much weaker than his first master, Zhu. Zhu Li was one of the top 10 immortal emperors under Zido. If Mo was in the ancient times, even if he could not be ranked among the top 10 immortal emperors, he would probably not be too far away from it. Hiss! The sea of flames spread all the way. Very soon, it approached Miao Yan and Zhu Gong's location. In front of this sea of flames, the two of them actually did not have the strength to resist at all. They will die. This place is too dangerous. Send them out of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. I will help you kill Mo. It's enough, Ning Fan said to the eyeball monster in his mind. The eyeball monster had the same plan. Miao Yan and Zhu Gong could no longer help him by staying here. Instead, there was a high possibility that they would be accidentally killed by the sea of flames. It was meaningless for them to stay here. It controlled Ning Fan's body and abruptly flicked its sleeve, sweeping towards Miao Yan and Zhu Gong. At the next moment, Miao Yan and Zhu Gong were directly thrown out of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court by the eyeball monster's great ability, returning to the broken wilderness. Your heart is the same as Dong Wang's. You are too weak. They are just a few ants. If they die, then so be it. Why do you want to save them? Only the weak will show mercy to others. Mo scoffed disdainfully. Then he clasped both of his palms together. 2 gigantic gray flame palms instantly appeared in the sea of flames, closing towards Ning Fan. You Rujan. The eyeball controlled Ning Fan's body and pointed a finger at him. Countless black threads immediately twisted into a bundle and turned into a black halberd. With a horizontal slash, not only did it destroy the 2 flaming palms, but it also extinguished the entire sea of flames. At the same time, the entire sky of the 9th level of the Heaven Imperial Court was cut in half. Bang, bang, bang. The ceiling of the 9th level of the Heavenly Imperial Court began to collapse. Countless rocks and spatial fragments fell from the sky. The shattered void storm howled in this place. The scenery of the outside world was revealed to him, and the sky above him was, without a doubt, the sky of the shattered wildlands. This attack actually opened up a path between the sky and the outside world. It was enough to show how terrifying it was. This black halberd was extremely similar to the battle-will divine ability of the art of God of War, the Battle King halberd. However, its power was thousands of times stronger. This black halberd was a divine ability that the eyeball borrowed from Ning Fan's yin-yang battle technique and condensed the moonlight of the black moon. Another sovereign Tao law, Mo's expression became more serious. Dark moon. The eyeball did not give Mo any chance to catch his breath. With a swipe of its huge hand, the entire world was plunged into darkness. It was the purest darkness. Mo's eyes widened in shock. In this darkness, his 5 senses were actually deprived. He could not even sense his spirit sense. There was no way he could predict where the right eye would attack from. A battle of magic power between cultivators was ever-changing. A single moment of carelessness could result in death. An unprecedented sense of crisis appeared in Mo's heart. He did not dare to be careless. He coughed out a large mouthful of blood at the cost of damaging himself. The blood turned into gray moonlight, dispersing all the darkness. However, he was still one step too late. Before his 5 senses had recovered, the attack of the eyeball had already reached him. The halberd of battle-will that was powerful enough to split the sky into halves struck his body. Mo, who had always been arrogant, was severely injured by the halberd of battle will in just a moment. His clone was directly cut into two by the halberd of battle will. Bit by bit, it dissipated in the air. The remaining halberd light swept across the sky. The entire 9th level of the Heaven Imperial Court was cut in half again, exposing it to the outside world. Has Mo been killed? The eyeball was extremely excited. Be careful. His chi is still here. He's not dead. Ning Fan reminded in his mind. Ning Fan had already completed the last step of the cultivation of the yin-yang rain technique. The rain of heaven and earth was his spirit sense. In terms of sensing ability, it was even better than the eyeball. Sure enough, as Ning Fan had expected, a stone statue of a sense fragmentation realm cultivator in the vast stone forest suddenly broke into two halves with a cracking sound. A gray shadow walked out from it. If it wasn't Mo, who else could it be? What a strange ability! The eyeball's eyes widened in shock. He believed that his attack just now did not miss its target. By relying on Ning Fan's power of yin-yang to launch a sneak attack, he did not even give Mo the time to activate the Feather of Tribulation to protect himself. That attack was definitely enough to kill Mo. Why did it fail? There's actually a third type of power at the Sovereign Realm. Moreover, it's the Tao of Darkness, which is rather difficult to deal with. I was too careless. If it wasn't because my lord gave me the stone substitution technique, even if I don't die this time, I'm afraid I would have been severely injured by you. Mo said with a pale face. The broken stone statue belonged to a cultivator that he had captured alive earlier. If it wasn't because he had set up a trap in advance, that cultivator would have been severely injured by the eyeball's halberd. Stone substitution technique? He actually learned this secret technique without my knowledge. The eyeball's heart sank. The stone substitution technique was an extremely ancient secret technique. It could be used to avoid certain death. The higher the grade of the stone substitution technique, the greater the danger it could avoid. Most of the techniques circulated in the cultivation world were low-grade stone substitution techniques. They were useless to high-level cultivators. However, one thing was for sure. The technique that Mo used was certainly not some low-grade stone substitution technique. How could it be a low-grade stone substitution technique if it could avoid the full-force attack of a third-level quasi-saint? There were a lot of stone statues in this stone forest. Among them, there were 23 stone statues that still had life chi. The eyeball calculated inwardly. A secret technique of the stone substitution technique must use a living person as a substitute. In other words, if I don't destroy the 23 stone statues of life here, even if I kill Mo, he can still use the stone substitution technique 23 times to avoid death. In order to kill Mo, I must first destroy all 23 stone statues in this place. The eyeball controlled Ning Fan's body. With a flash, he directly appeared in front of one of the stone statues of life. Then he raised his hand and tried to break the stone statue. Mo smiled coldly and let the eyeball do whatever it wanted. The eyeball's technique landed on the fragile stone statue, but it could not break it at all. A dignified third-level quasi-saint actually could not destroy a mere stone statue. This is a secret technique that my lord has given me. The conditions to use it are extremely harsh, but the effect is also excellent. With your cultivation base, you won't be able to destroy the stone statue without a heaven-opening treasure. I can still die 23 times. How many times can you die? Bone Sacrifice Realm. Mo broke his own finger bone again and summoned the white bone cudgel. With a supreme treasure and 23 lives, how could he lose to a mere right eye? Today, the right eye must become one with him. As for Ning Fan, he must also become the body that I possess. Perfect. This young man's physical body is too perfect. Not only does he possess the 4 types of power of divine, demon, devil, and tribulation, but he also has the identity of the 10th barbarian god. Once I possess this young man's body, I will be able to escape from this place and devour his 36 Xing mountains. Mo licked his lips. He wanted to crush the right eye and Ning Fan with his absolute strength and make them feel despair. Without a heaven-opening treasure, I won't be able to break these stone statues. A heaven-opening treasure. That's a supreme treasure that even a saint would find hard to obtain. The right eye had only separated from me after I arrived at the Heaven Imperial Court. All these years, I have been staying in the Heaven Imperial Court. How can I obtain a heaven-opening treasure? Right now, the right eye should be in despair, right? You clearly have the chance to kill me. Unfortunately, I have so many stone statues that can substitute me. How are you going to kill me? Right eye, if you surrender now and serve me again, I can forgive your past sins and preserve a trace of your spiritual consciousness. Inemo said in a condescending tone. Bullshit. Do I need to surrender to you? Are you kidding me? Stinking brat, lend me your heaven-opening artifact. The eyeball scolded while controlling Ning Fan's body. The shadow of a god-destroying giant appeared outside his body. The golden giant enveloped Ning Fan within it as if he had the strongest defense in the world. With Ning Fan's cultivation base, the god-destroying shield was enough to defend against all attacks below the 9 Tribulations realm. If the eyeball's cultivation base was at the 3rd level quasi-sage realm, its defense would undoubtedly be even more terrifying. As long as I summon the god-destroying giant, the eyeball believes that unless Inemo uses his strongest trump card, he definitely won't be able to break the shield. Smash them. Smash them hard. Don't leave a single one alive. The eyeball gave an order in a deep voice. The golden giant that was protecting his body immediately threw a fiery punch at the stone forest below. Wherever the punch landed, golden flames would burn. As soon as the eyeball monster summoned the god-destroying giant, Inemo had a bad feeling. When he saw that the golden armored giant could actually trigger the might of heaven-opening treasure, Inemo's expression turned into complete astonishment. It's actually the power of a heaven-opening treasure. How is this possible? This item is... Where did you get it from? In the end, Inemo recognized the god-destroying shield of the ancient country and became even more astonished. As the 9th barbarian god, how could he not know about the god-destroying shield? This was a supreme treasure that could be ranked 19th on the heaven-opening ranking. It was enough to make any 4th step immortal emperor drool. With this treasure in my right eye's hands, the stone statues in the stone forest would be in danger. You ask me, who else would I ask? How would I know where that brat got this supreme treasure from? The eyeball was even more curious than Inemo, alright? He was famous for his curiosity. Only God knew how shocked he was when he told Ning Fan about the plan and found out that Ning Fan actually had the god-destroying shield with him. He was so shocked that his eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. When I asked Ning Fan, he did not even tell me how he got the god-destroying shield. Instead, he even kept it a secret. Damn it. Forget it. It's fine as long as it's useful. I'll get rid of Inemo first. I'll ask Ning Fan about the origin of the god-destroying shield in the future. The golden armored giant swung his fist, directly enveloping the remaining stone statues. Seeing that all the stone statues were about to be destroyed, Ning Fan's voice rang in his mind at the right time. Leave a few stone statues. Don't smash them. Chapter 949. He couldn't destroy all 23 life stone statues. First of all, the statue of the 7th forefather could not be smashed. When the 7th forefather was turned into a stone statue by Inemo, his storage bag was also petrified along with him. There was still the aura of the souls of the 700,000 barbarians in the storage bag. If this stone statue was smashed, the storage pouch that had been petrified would shatter, and the storage pouch would be lost in the endless void, unable to be retrieved. The stone statue of the 7th ancestor must be left behind for the time being. Other than the 7th ancestor, there were also some other stone statues that Ning Fan recognized. Ao Xian, Lu Ha, and the other 3 barbarian ancestors of the Fan family. Ning Fan did not care whether he saved them or not. However, Ning Fan saw the stone statues of Mounz and the 2 Broken Sense realm commanders under Lu He's command. This person took advantage of the great calamity of the desolate world to rescue people and seize their treasures. He even foolishly looked for Ning Fan. However, he was spared by Ning Fan because he had a deep relationship with the Black Devil sect. Ning Fan did not have a good impression of Mounz. To him, this person was just a passerby. However, for the sake of the Black Devil sect, Ning Fan did not mind saving this person. As for the other two Broken Sense commanders, their names seemed to be Ting Nan and Ting Bei. I can't remember their names clearly. To Ning Fan, they were just passers-by. However, the two of them had once led a group of people to protect Zhao De and the others during the battle against the 6 ancestors of the Fan family. For this reason, Ning Fan did not mind saving the two of them. Through the connection between their minds, Ning Fan transmitted his thoughts to the eyeball monster. The strange eyeball secretly cursed in its heart. Even so, it still obeyed Ning Fan's instructions and controlled its strength slightly, avoiding the stone statues of the 7th ancestor, Mounz, Ting Nan and Ting Bei. Bang, bang, bang. The stone statues were brutally smashed into pieces by the eyeball monster. In the blink of an eye, there were only 4 stone statues left standing alone outside the stone forest. The golden-armored giant then opened its mouth and swallowed the remaining 4 stone statues, disappearing without a trace. These 4 stone statues were still alive. After this battle, there might be a way to remove the petrification. Mo's face turned ashen. Of course, he couldn't use the destroyed stone statue anymore. The stone statue that was swallowed by the golden-armored giant had also cut off the connection with him. Was this the power of the heaven-opening artifact? Old ghost Enema, you didn't expect this, did you? The right eye that you once regarded as a burden can actually surpass you one day. The eyeball monster controlled the golden-armored giant, holding the golden shield in its hand to protect the front. Like a cannonball, it charged towards Mo wherever the giant passed. One could only see a beam of golden light whizzing past. Under the impact of the tremendous force, the entire space of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court became unstable, as if it was about to collapse. Mo's expression changed, and he swung the bone club with both hands, smashing it towards the golden-armored giant. When the two collided, it was Mo who was sent flying by the giant, vomiting blood. Was this the power of a second-step cultivator? That feeling was like being hit by tens of thousands of cultivation planets. Aside from a cultivator whose body had reached the Saint Realm, who could withstand this kind of impact? Bang bang bang. Bang him to death for this old man. Under the control of the eyeball monster, the golden-armored giant once again crashed into Mo. Its expression was indifferent and emotionless, looking at Mo as if he was an ant. Mo didn't dare to resist the collision of the golden-armored giant. Without a word, he turned around and left, but was still caught by the giant. He was directly hit in the back and flew out of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court while vomiting blood. Along the way, he destroyed countless palaces and buildings. He flew to the wilderness outside the Imperial Court before he barely managed to stabilize himself. He was covered in blood and looked extremely pathetic. It was only 2 collisions, but extremely serious injuries had already appeared in Mo's body. While he was shocked, he was also extremely angry. He actually suffered losses in the hands of a mere right eye one after another. It was really a great shame. A great shame. Seeing that Mo had flown out of the heavenly palace, the eyeball monster hurriedly controlled the golden-armored giant and chased him all the way to the wild void outside the heavenly palace. Without giving Mo time to breathe, it once again collided with Mo. Its action was brutal and overbearing. Seeing the golden-armored giant colliding with him for the 3rd time, Mo was so angry that he laughed. He waved his hand, and the phenomenon of 9 mountains and 8 seas appeared in the world. Between the 9 mountains and 8 seas, a 1,000-foot-tall stone tree grew strangely, and gray immediately filled the entire wilderness. In just an instant, one wilderness world after another was dyed gray by Mo's divine ability. Mo even roared into the sky, and the power of his roar instantly formed a divine ability. Wherever the roar passed, the sky was petrified, and space fragments fell like gravel. That roar was too shocking. Whether it was Miaoyan or Candle Bao, Even if they were very far away, their chi was also shaken by this roar. Those demon cultivators and humans far away in the wilderness also heard this roar. Those cultivators whose cultivation base was lower than Du Zhen's were directly knocked unconscious by this roar that crossed realms. Even void-shedding experts would also be injured by this roar. What kind of powerful divine ability is this? Who is making such an angry roar? They couldn't understand, couldn't think. One after another, cultivators vomited blood and fell to the ground, unconscious. In the human encampment in the wilderness, immortal concubine Zhang Yu used all her remaining strength to activate her divine ability, carefully protecting immortal Loli, Zhao Dai, and the others from being hurt by the roar. If it wasn't for her quick reaction, Zhao and the others would most likely be injured by this sudden roar. Immortal Loli was fine as she was silly and did not know that a world-shaking battle was taking place in the distance. She only wondered who made such an unpleasant roar. However, immortal concubine Zhang Yu could clearly feel that the person who roared was actually a third-level quasi-saint. A third-level quasi-saint. Even when she was at her peak, she could only look up to such a strength. There's actually a third-level quasi-saint using his divine ability in that direction. This is bad. That little thief seems to be in that direction. Will he be fine? Immortal concubine Zhang Yu bit her lips anxiously. She was actually worried about Ning Fan's safety. How could she not be worried? She was Ning Fan's slave. If he dies, she would also have to die with him, alright? But I hope that little thief will have a safe journey and live a long and boundless life. I hope he won't get involved in any trouble. Unfortunately, Zhang Yu did not know that Ning Fan was not just involved in trouble. He was actually the troublemaker. Yin Mo's roar was directed at Ning Fan. The others were only affected by the roar, but Ning Fan was affected by the full force of the roar. The golden armored giant was about to collide with Yin Mo. However, when it was shaken by the roar, it paused in midair as if it was struck by a heavy blow. Seeing that it had stopped the giant's attack, Yin Mo did not have the time to feel happy when the giant raised its head to look at the moon. Then, it glared at the void and let out a similar roar. Its roar was actually stronger than Yin Mo's roar. Bang, bang, bang. The 9 mountains and 8 seas and the stone trees that Yin Mo conjured all crumbled under the giant's roar. With the power of the roar, the giant broke free from the restraints of Yin Mo's roar and charged at Yin Mo again. Caught off guard, Yin Mo was knocked away for the 3rd time and coughed out blood. His chi became even weaker. I'm no match for him. I'm no match for him at all. Yin Mo was unwilling to admit it, but he had to admit that the eyeball monster who possessed the heaven-opening treasure was terrifyingly strong. Old man Yin Mo, when you betrayed Big Brother Undying and broke your oath, have you ever thought that such a day would come? The voice of the eyeball monster had just sounded when the golden armored giant knocked Yin Mo away for the 4th time. This time, even the white bone cudgel had several cracks on it, and its power was greatly reduced. If you did not open the formation of the Chen Sea, if you did not lead the wolf into the house, how could the Purple Dough immortal region be so easily breached by the tribulation spirit race? Are you worthy of Big Brother Undying's trust? The eyeball monster roared and knocked Yin Mo away for the 5th time, causing the white bone club to break into 2 pieces and fall into the endless void, disappearing without a trace. That day, you knelt in front of Undying and swore an oath. Do you still remember? Yin Mo could not answer at all. He was knocked away for the 7th time and coughed out blood. His expression became more and more ferocious. The Purple Dough immortals are above, and I cultivate Yin Mo. Since I was born by the Venerable Emperor, I will naturally inherit the will of the Venerable Emperor. Although I am an evil corpse, I will definitely be upright and have a clear conscience of the world and Purple Dough. From now on, I will live as Purple Dough and die as Purple Dough. If I break this oath, I will be punished by the heavens. You may have forgotten these words, but I have not. I dare not forget. Bang, bang, bang. Yin Mo tried to fight back, but his divine ability was unable to harm the golden armored giant in the slightest. He was knocked away again and again by the giant, and his avatar started to collapse. It was not only Enmo's avatar that started to collapse, countless vermilion cracks appeared in the sky as well. A crack had actually appeared in the seal of the Heaven's Sealing Immortal Edict. On that day, Miao Yen and Lu Ha had used the power of the Heaven's Sealing Immortal Edict to seal the entire desolate land, causing it to shatter into countless worlds. The strength of the seal was sufficient to stop over 100 immortal emperors outside the desolate land. But at this moment, the power of the seal was actually faintly unable to suppress the eyeball monster and Enmo's power. It could not suppress them. The power of the god-slaying shield surpassed the Heaven's Sealing Immortal Edict by too much. It was only a matter of time before the Heaven's Sealing Immortal Edict collapsed. I am your right eye, you are Enmo, and I am Enmo as well. You made a mistake, so it is most appropriate for me to give you punishment. You broke your oath and betrayed the Purple Dough Immortal Region, causing the Purple Dough Immortal Region to fall into the flames of war. This is the first sin. You killed your companions in exchange for the position of the barbarian god. This is the second sin. You used the evil corpse to go against your true self, causing Big Brother Bu Si to die with hatred. He was suppressed under the Nine-Li Mountain and could not be resurrected. This is the third sin. Traitor Enmo, do you know your sins? Bang! Enmo was like a pile of mud. After being hit by the golden armored giant, he fell into the endless void and was on the verge of death. However, the look in his eyes was more sinister than any other time in his life. Enmo gritted his teeth and continued to counterattack the golden armored giant. Enmo casually used one divine ability after another, but it was a pity that he was unable to hurt the giant at all. More rumbling sounds could be heard, and more vermilion cracks appeared in the void. In the end, the Heaven's Sealing Immortal Edict completely collapsed. At this moment, the countless shattered worlds of the desolate land began to piece together and reassemble into a complete world. It was exactly the same as the previous 42 desolate lands of the ancient desolate land. Of course, after being reassembled, the landscape of the ancient desolate land was very different from before. It was a scene of devastation with ruins, broken corpses, and bloodstains everywhere. After a great calamity in the desolate land, there were not many living beings left in the desolate land. It was a desolate and dilapidated scene. The Heaven's Sealing Immortal Edict actually disappeared in advance. Why did this happen? In the outside world, many immortal emperors of the two races were shocked. Even more immortal emperors were only shocked for a short moment before they madly rushed into the desolate land. By my order, the ancient passage must not fall into the hands of the demon race. If any demon race tries to seize the passage, kill them without mercy. By my order, we must seize the ancient passage at all costs. If any human race tries to hinder us, kill them without mercy. Two murderous orders came at the same time. They were the orders of the heaven-connecting ancient emperor and the true dragon clan leader. After the orders, the two of them followed the large group of immortal emperors into the desolate land. The place where they appeared was not far from the Nine Heavens imperial court. However, before the immortal emperors could fight for the passage, many of them were affected by the tyrannical battle fluctuations and were sent flying backward. They looked extremely miserable. There were people fighting in this place. What kind of battle fluctuations could send immortal emperors flying so easily? The immortal emperors of the two races looked up and saw an unbelievable scene. Outside the Nine Heavens imperial court, a 1,000 feet tall golden armored giant roared as he rampaged. Like a cannonball, he knocked another old monster over and over again, sending him flying backward while vomiting blood. The immortal emperor who was knocked flying tried to fight back. He casually waved his hand and used his great ability to severely injure immortal emperors and quasi-sages. However, he could not hurt the giant at all. Third-level quasi-sage. That gray-shadowed old man and the giant in golden armor are both third-level quasi-sages. Two third-level quasi-sages appeared in the Nine Heavens imperial court. Are they also here for the ancient passage? That gray-shadowed old man seems to be the expert who injured us with a roar. But that giant in golden armor, who is he? That giant has such a terrifying physical body. He can actually suppress the other third-level quasi-sage. I'm afraid that even a sixth tribulation immortal emperor can't. Bang! The last one to speak was an eighth tribulation immortal emperor. Before he could finish his words, he was hit by a beam of golden light head-on. His physical body exploded into a bloody mist. Only his golden primordial spirit escaped by a hair's breadth. He could not help but tremble. Not only him, but also the Tong Tian ancient emperor and the true dragon clan leader. All the other immortal emperors were terrified. What kind of power is this? He could destroy the physical body of an eighth tribulation immortal emperor with just a casual hit. Even an ordinary third-level quasi-saint would not be able to do this so easily. Himisa. The eyeball monster glanced at the pitiful eighth tribulation immortal emperor and did not care about him. If he wanted to blame someone, he could only blame his bad luck. He was fighting with Een Mo, but this person insisted on entering the range of the giant in golden armor. Who could he blame for destroying his physical body? Back off. Don't interfere with my work. The eyeball monster ordered the immortal emperors of the two races. Although he was usually extremely wretched, at this moment, his voice was full of supreme majesty. Like a clap of thunder, it exploded in the ears of the immortal emperors, shaking their auras. Many immortal emperors immediately retreated for thousands of miles, afraid that they would be involved in the shockwaves again and lose their physical bodies. There were also many immortal emperors who were gloomy and did not want to retreat, including the Tong Tian ancient emperor and the true dragon clan leader. Your Excellency, the two of them were about to straighten their backs and say something to the eyeball monster, but unfortunately before they could finish, they were locked by another cold killing intent. Humph, I was worried that I could not win against the right eye due to my injuries. After eating you guys, I should be able to recover a lot. Puff. The 12 experts who did not retreat were shrouded in gray light before they could react. The Tong Tian ancient emperor, the true dragon clan leader, and the other experts reacted quickly. Seeing that the situation was not good, they immediately retreated, their hearts beating rapidly. The other three immortal emperors were only at the sixth tribulation immortal realm. Before they could react, their bodies were petrified in the gray light. Bang, bang, bang. After 3 explosions, the 3 of them turned into gravel and exploded. Only their golden primordial spirits and demon souls escaped by a hair's breadth. Do you think you can escape? Een Mo sneered. He could not win against the right eye, but he could win against these juniors. With a flick of his finger, 3 rays of gray light shot into the primordial spirits and demon souls of the 3 immortal emperors at lightning speed. 3 shrill screams resounded in the sky, and a strong murderous aura spread across the desolate land. The 3 immortal emperors were dead. The primordial spirits of the immortal emperors who were known for being difficult to kill could not withstand one move from Een Mo. Een Mo opened his mouth and swallowed the 3 primordial spirits and demon souls, which had turned gray, directly into his stomach. His injuries were healed by more than half, and his aura had also increased by a lot. Wherever his eyes swept across, the immortal emperors of the 2 races let out a gasp. Their fear of Een Mo rose to an unprecedented level in an instant. The immortal emperors were the peak experts of the 4 heavens and demon heavens. All of them were peerless figures, but they could not withstand one move from Een Mo. Who is this person? Is he also here to fight for the ancient passage? Which force does he belong to? The number of third-rank quasi-saints in the world could be counted with one's fingers. Is this person an elder of the secret race? Or is he an ancient ferocious demon sleeping in the dream world of the demon spirits? Third-rank quasi-saint. Such a cultivation base is almost undefeatable. Bang. Een Mo, who was deemed undefeatable by the immortal emperors, did not have the time to continue killing. He groaned and was knocked away by a ray of golden light. He vomited blood and flew for a few hundred li before he managed to stabilize himself. Is he really undefeatable? The little person in the eyeball monster's heart smiled but did not say anything. Humph, all of you juniors, get lost. If you are eaten by Nemo, it will help him recover from his injuries and increase his aura. That is not good. Under the control of the eyeball monster, the golden armored giant stared coldly at the immortal emperors of the two races. He did not care whether these people were dead or alive. He just did not want them to be eaten by Nemo. Chapter 950. So the name of the gray-shadowed old man is Nemo. Hearing this, all the immortal emperors didn't dare to disobey the order of the strange eyeball. They retreated again. This time, everyone retreated 10,000 li away, but they still felt that it wasn't safe enough. The third stage quasi-saint named Nemo was too powerful. He could kill immortal emperors as if he was playing with them. How could they not hide further away? Of course, the golden armored giant was even more powerful than Nemo's. Some immortal emperors who were familiar with the ancient secrets frowned. They vaguely felt that the name Nemo sounded familiar. It seemed that he had appeared in the ancient history before. However, few people knew what Nemo had done. The Tong Tian ancient emperor and the true dragon clan patriarch were the most familiar with the ancient history. When they heard the name Nemo, their expressions changed. Obviously, they knew who Nemo was. Could this be that person? The ancient great cultivator who betrayed the Purple Doe immortal domain and joined the mortal world. An ancient great cultivator. Even if he wasn't a third-step saint, his strength was close to that of a saint. They didn't expect such a big change to happen in the desolate land this time. The ancient great cultivator who had been sealed in the history had actually appeared. If this news was spread out, it would shock everyone. The Tong Tian ancient emperor and the Tong Tian ancient emperor recalled the description of Nemo in the ancient scroll and compared it with the gray-shadowed figure in front of them. Gradually, their guesses were confirmed. They couldn't be wrong. This gray-shadowed old man's appearance and abilities were very similar to those in the ancient scroll. It was very likely that he was Nemo. However, who was the other golden armor giant? This person was stronger than Nemo. It was impossible for him to be a nobody. This person's true body seemed to be hiding in the golden armor giant to kill and injure his enemies. This kind of ability was simply unheard of in the illusory world. Could it be that this person was also an ancient great cultivator? Right? Don't be too full of yourself. When I devour a few more immortal emperors, I will definitely be able to recover from the great tribulation of surplus and defeat you. Nemo revealed his ferocity. If he wasn't at his weakest moment, he wouldn't be suppressed by the right eye. After a series of exchanges, Nemo could vaguely tell that the heaven-opening tool in the right eye was not complete. It seemed to be only a fragment. It's just a fragment. I might still have a chance to turn the tide. As soon as he stabilized his body, Nemo's figure immediately flickered. Heaven and earth rippled, and he directly disappeared from where he stood. The eyeball snorted coldly and controlled the golden armored giant to crash into a place where there was no one around. Nemo fell out along with spatial fragments, but he gritted his teeth and disappeared again. This time, the ripples that appeared under Nemo's feet were much more numerous than before. Where did he go? The eyeball's eyes narrowed. This time, he was unable to accurately sense where Nemo had gone. 9,710 li. In his mind, Ning Fan revealed Nemo's current location. In that direction stood two burly men with bare upper arms. Their bodies were covered in lightning scales. They were immortal emperors from the Thunder Mantis clan, and both of them had sixth tribulation cultivation. Just as Ning Fan finished his words, Nemo's figure suddenly appeared behind the two burly men and gave them a cruel smile. Descendants of the great monster Laze? I'll be taking your monster souls. Bang, bang. Two loud noises resounded. Before the two immortal emperors of the Thunder Mantis clan could react, they were already hit by Nemo's gray light. Their physical bodies were petrified and shattered into pieces that filled the sky. Only their monster souls managed to escape in fear. Unfortunately, before they could get far, Nemo opened his mouth and directly devoured them. Another 2 demon sovereigns had fallen. Each of the immortal emperors was greatly shocked. How would they dare to split up in groups of 3 to 5? All of them gathered together, ignoring the grudges between the human race and the demon race. They were unprecedentedly united as they were afraid that Enmo would sneak an attack on them and kill one of them. The eyeball sighed inwardly. He controlled the golden armored giant to turn into a ray of golden light that pierced through the sky, sending Enmo flying once again. This time, however, Enmo's injuries were obviously lighter than the previous few times. After eating 5 immortal emperors in a row, not only was his injuries almost healed, but his chi had also skyrocketed. It was not skyrocketing. It was recovering. Enmo's peak state was far stronger than what he was now. Right now, he was just at his weakest state due to the great tribulation of deficiency. If he recovers to his peak state, he might not be afraid of the right eye. He still needed to eat more immortal emperors in order to recover his peak state. A flock of sheep is still just a flock of sheep. There are still 104 of them. Enmo, who was flying backwards, forcefully stabilized his body. Then he disappeared in a flash. This time, the eyeball already knew where Enmo had gone without Ning Fan telling him his location. He directly rushed towards the place where the immortal emperors were gathered. It's too late. You can't save them. Fire kill. As soon as Enmo's voice resounded, a pillar of fire rose from the center of the immortal emperors. Many immortal emperors with profound cultivation bases immediately retreated in all directions when they saw the pillar of fire. However, most of them did not have the time to retreat. Undying devil statue appear. Enmo took a step out from the pillar of fire. He put his palms together and the blazing gray flames instantly turned into a stone statue of a man in Taoist robes. It was the statue of the undying great emperor. As soon as the statue appeared, the undying devil chi instantly covered the entire sky like a black mist. Under the devil chi, each of the immortal emperors fell into an illusory technique. Their faces were filled with confusion. Only a small number of immortal emperors whose cultivation bases had reached the 9th tribulation of eternity managed to escape from the illusory technique of the undying devil statue. Undying devil statue. This man can actually summon the undying devil statue. What exactly is the relationship between this man and the undying great emperor? Perhaps many immortal emperors were unfamiliar with the Een devils. However, there were very few immortal emperors who did not know about the undying devil statue. In the past, the strongest immortal emperor under immortal sovereign Zido, the undying great emperor, was an expert in one of his few divine abilities. One of them was called the devil statue summoning technique. This technique was recorded in many ancient scrolls. According to rumors, after the undying great emperor summoned the devil statue, he could trap all the enemy cultivators on the battlefield in an illusory technique. They would lose their vitality, slow down their speed, and weaken their attacks and defenses. As for the cultivators on their side, they would be able to recover their vitality, increase their speed, and increase their attacks and defenses. In a one-on-one battle, this divine ability was not considered powerful. However, it was definitely a great killing weapon on a large-scale battlefield. Of course, in this situation, this divine ability was also a great killing weapon. Enmo had only summoned one devil statue, and 89 of the 104 immortal emperors were trapped in the illusory technique, unable to extricate themselves. When cultivators fought, a moment of distraction was enough to affect their life and death, let alone an illusory technique that they could not extricate themselves from. Those 89 people were in danger. Direct death deviltry appear. Enmo muttered an incantation. The undying devil chi in heaven and earth immediately rolled back and enveloped the undying devil statue, turning it into a 10,000 zhang tall black stone vine tree. Countless vines shot out from the stone tree. The vines easily pierced through the bodies of the immortal emperors, hanging the 89 immortal emperors who had fallen into the illusion. This was the undying great emperor's divine ability. It was a divine ability that could be used to kill enemies with a higher cultivation realm. However, it was different from the original divine ability. This technique had been modified by Inmo. Inmo's cultivation base was already higher than the divine abilities of the immortal emperors here. With the modified undying divine ability, it was naturally easier for him to kill them. Unfortunately, his undying power was restrained by Ning Fan. When he fought against the right eye, he could not use the undying technique at all. Otherwise, he would not have ended up in such a miserable state. Humph! Do you want to devour the flesh and blood of these juniors with this deviltry? Dream on. Bang! A ray of golden light collided with Inmo, who was sneering under the tree, sending him flying 10,000 li away. As for the direct death deviltry, it was controlled by Ning Fan's body. Ning Fan raised his hand and sent out a life-slaying sword light to cut it into two. As long as it was an undying divine ability, it would be afraid of the power of the life-slaying sword light. Only then did the 89 immortal emperors who were trapped on the devil tree break free from the illusory technique. Each of them was drenched in cold sweat. When they were controlled by the illusory technique, they could not move, but they could sense what was happening outside. They knew that if it wasn't for the eye monster who acted in time, they would certainly have been killed by the strange direct death deviltry. Inmo, who could take down 89 immortal emperors in one go, was really powerful. As for the eye monster who could cut down the direct death deviltry with a single slash, it was even more terrifying. Was this the battle between ancient great cultivators? It was not something that they, the doomsday immortal emperors, could intervene in. Right, I am indeed not your match now. However, if I want to kill someone, you won't be able to save me. Inmo muttered a word in his heart. Before the 89 immortal emperors who were saved could feel happy, black chi billowed out from the wounds that were pierced by the deviltry along with a rotten smell. Their wounds were rotting at a speed visible to the naked eye. Their life force was rapidly dissipating between heaven and earth. Their bodies were paralyzed and they could not move at all, as if they were poisoned by the deviltry. The life force that the 89 immortal emperors lost was all replenished into Inmo's body. Inmo's injuries were finally healed and his chi became even stronger. Damn it! I can't stop my life force from flowing away. Quickly move your body. One of the young immortal emperors was extremely shocked. Half of his body had been destroyed by the deviltry. The area of his wound was the largest among them, and the speed at which his life force was flowing away was also the fastest among them. In just a breath's time, he had turned into a white-haired old man. In another breath's time, his flesh and blood had all rotted, revealing his white bones. In the third breath's time, even his demon soul had perished in the air and rotted into pus and blood. The sixth immortal emperor, dead. What kind of poison is this? I have cultivated my body for so many years, but it can't stop the corrosion of this poison at all. Just a breath's time later than the young immortal emperor, another sturdy human body cultivator had a terrified expression as his primordial spirit rotted and died. The seventh immortal emperor, dead. Bang. The eighth immortal emperor's body exploded into a cloud of poisonous fog and died tragically. The ninth immortal emperor melted into a pool of pus and died. The 10th, 11th, 12th, the eyeball monster was shocked. The undying demon statue definitely did not have such a terrifying poison. Inmo actually made some changes to the original foundation of this technique. After the demon statue turned into a tree, its power was really terrifying. Inmo, old man, you are so shameless. How dare you use such a vicious mystical ability on a group of juniors? You want to kill people to replenish your life force? Don't even think about it. If you kill people, I will save them. The eyeball monster suddenly made a hand seal. Then, another giant appeared beside the golden armored giant. It was a kind of cloning ability. It could split half of the main body's cultivation base and fuse it with the power of his clone. Clone, you keep him occupied. I will go and save them. The golden armored clone answered. Then, it turned into a ray of golden light and charged at Inmo. The clone only had half of the eyeball monster's cultivation base. It was much weaker than Inmo. However, It had the ability of the god exterminating shield. The clone could not hurt Enemo while Enemo could not kill the clone. Both of them were fighting each other and it was hard to tell who would win. As for the main body of the eyeball monster, he took the opportunity to exit the god-exterminating giant form and revealed his ghost-faced appearance. In a flash, he appeared in front of a hunchbacked old man. Without saying a word, he lifted his hand and pointed at the old man's glabella, shooting a ray of white sword light into the old man's body. This old man was a sixth tribulation immortal emperor. However, he could not get rid of the corrosive poison in his body. He could not even suppress it. However, the eyeball monster was different. He was using Ning Fan's body. The corrosive poison was actually the power of immortality. Therefore, it was restrained by Ning Fan's life-severing divine ability. When the sword light entered his body, the old man immediately felt as if he was bathed in a spring breeze. The corrosive power in his body was completely dispersed by the sword light. His life was saved. Junior Zhou Yunlong thanks Senior for saving my life. A dignified sixth tribulation immortal emperor actually cupped his fists at Ning Fan with tears of gratitude and addressed him as a junior. Unfortunately, Ning Fan was currently under the control of the eyeball monster. He could not be bothered to care about this immortal emperor at all. He grabbed the old man and threw him 1,000,000 li away like he was throwing a piece of trash. Humph! A bunch of fools. I told you to stay away but you refused to listen. This time, all of you better stay away from me. If you get killed again, I won't save you anymore. In a flash, the eyeball monster appeared in front of a middle-aged immortal emperor again. He dispersed the poison in his body with a finger and threw him 1,000,000 li away like a sandbag. He did not even give him a chance to thank him. One finger, one grab, one throw. One finger, one grab, one throw, one after another, the immortal emperors were saved by the eyeball monster. Among these immortal emperors, there were quite a number of bloodlines that the eyeball monster was familiar with. Zhu Li's descendant, Qi Tsong's descendant, Long Yan's descendant. This person is Yen Qiushui's descendant. The eyeball monster appeared in front of Yen Qiushui. Looking at her beautiful face, he felt nauseous as if he was recalling the unpleasant memories in the past. The ferocious demon Yen Qiushui was famous for her beauty. There were countless immortal cultivators who pursued her. The eyeball monster had once left Enmo's body temporarily to peep at Yen Qiushui when she was bathing. In the end, he saw her peeling off her human skin with his own eyes. The Demon Yen clan was a clan of ugly monsters who wore the skin of beautiful humans. Damn it. In the past, when I peeked at Yen Qiushui, I was frightened by her true appearance. It left a serious psychological shadow in me. I must throw her descendant as far away as possible. Senior, save me. Yen Qiushui looked at the ghost-faced Ning Fan pitifully. However, she was surprised to see the strong disdain in his eyes. At the next moment, Ning Fan raised his hand and dispersed the poison in her body. Then he threw her 10,000,000 li away. How much did he despise her that he would throw her 10 times further away than the others? The powerful force of the throw made Yen Qiushui's entire body hurt. She could not help but mutter inwardly, "Did I offend this senior? He's so rough. He doesn't know how to show mercy to the fairer sex." This person cultivates the cultivation method of the Lost World Palace. Is he the successor of that little girl Yin Rong? The eyeball monster controlled Ning Fan's body and appeared in front of the old ancestor of the Lost World Palace. After removing the poison from her body, he gently threw her 1,000,000 li away. This scene was also captured by Yen Qiushui, who was 10,000,000 li away. This senior is rough to beautiful women but extremely gentle to ugly old women. Could it be that he actually has such a taste? I can't believe that there are still men in this world who don't love beautiful women but ugly women. It seems like I have to make an ugly human skin to charm those old monsters with special fetishes. After saving a few people, the eyeball monster appeared in front of Meng Xuanzi again. The poison in Meng Xuanzi, the tablet-wielding immortal emperor, was much more severe than the other cultivators. However, he seemed to have a unique treasure that suppressed the poison and did not die. He's quite an impressive junior. Very good. The eyeball monster controlled Ning Fan's body and praised Meng Xuanzi like an old man. Then, it swiftly threw him away. I didn't expect that I would actually save Meng Xuanzi one day. Ning Fan sighed inwardly. In the past, it was Meng Xuanzi who saved him when his spirit sense was trapped in the northern heaven. It was Meng Xuanzi who helped him when he killed a mortal spirit-severing realm cultivator. Today, it's my turn to save Meng Xuanzi. Does this mean that I've cleared my karma? After saving a few more people, the eyeball monster appeared in front of calamity-wielding immortal emperor. This was an extremely beautiful woman, the type that the eyeball monster liked. Upon seeing this beauty, the eyeball monster was immediately shocked. However, when he saw the woman's true form, he immediately felt a chill down his spine. Fuli. I can't touch the women of the Fuli race. It will harm my luck. The eyeball sighed in his heart. At this moment, he possessed Ning Fan's body. His thoughts were completely revealed to Ning Fan without any reservation. Is she also from the Fuli sect? There's no mistaking it. At such a close distance, Ning Fan could sense the qi of the Fuli clan on immortal Emperor Zhang Jie's body. If it wasn't for Ning Fan's ancestral blood and his cultivation base that was comparable to an immortal venerable, he would certainly not be able to sense this trace of qi. Senior, you too? The tribulation-wielding immortal emperor's calm face suddenly changed. He almost blurted out the two words Fuli. She had also sensed the Fuli qi on Ning Fan's body. Because he was so close, he could feel it. Because he could feel it, he was shocked. So, he was looking forward to it. So there's actually another Fuli with ancestral blood in this world. If that's the case, could it be him? Could it be him? The eyeball monster casually removed the poison from the tribulation-wielding immortal emperor's body and looked at him in disdain. He was about to throw this Fuli bird 5 million li away in one go. At this moment, the tribulation-wielding immortal emperor suddenly spoke. His beautiful eyes were filled with a hint of expectation. In that expression, there was actually a kind of unforgettable longing, as if she had been waiting for a certain someone for a long time. People call me the tribulation-wielding immortal emperor, but not many people know my real name. Senior, have you ever seen a little Fuli sect that fills the sea with a piece of wood? Her name is Little Dummy. Huh? What little dummy? Isn't it what the elite guards do to fill the sea with a piece of wood? Even the Fuli sect has done that before? The eyeball monster's face was filled with question marks. He did not understand what the tribulation-wielding immortal emperor was trying to say. Without giving the tribulation-wielding immortal emperor a chance to speak, the eyeball monster threw the tribulation-wielding immortal emperor 5 million li away. He did not notice the bitterness on the corner of the tribulation-wielding immortal emperor's lips. It's not him, it's not. That day when the Fuli clan was annihilated, he disappeared. I thought that he would be able to live until today and that there would be a day for us to meet again. But in the end, the reunion that I waited for didn't happen. Big brother, you said that we would meet again. You said it. Big brother, where are you in the current world? No one remembers that silly little Fuli sect that fills the sea. In the current world, there will no longer be such a silly big brother who sits by the sea for 100,000 years, waiting for the butterfly to fly across the sea. My name is Ni Fan. I am Fuli, but also not Fuli. What I am looking at is not the sea but waiting. Waiting for a meeting with the butterfly. I am looking forward to whether the butterfly can fly across the sea or not. He will definitely come. Only then can it be perfect. It's just that this road is too difficult to walk. I have already waited for 42 times, but he still hasn't come. I'm afraid it will still take a long time for him to come. This time, he still hasn't come. I have to go. This time, it still can't be perfect. Little dummy, don't cry. We will meet again. I promise. Big brother, I miss you so much. I miss you so much. Little Lisek's master is an immortal emperor who controls tribulation. His true form is a Fuli sect. I see. Ning Fan was surprised, but he felt that it was reasonable. So they are a pair of Fuli sect master and disciple. Is this their secret? Very quickly, 100 breaths passed. The eyeball monster had already rescued everyone. A total of 15 immortal emperors had died in Inmo's hands. Of course, most of them were low-level immortal emperors. No matter which clan the ancient passage ended up in, the two clans had suffered a great loss. Come it. The eyeball monster shouted, and the golden-armored clone immediately returned to its true form. After killing 15 immortal emperors in a row, Inmo's chi had greatly increased. Even though he had yet to return to his peak state, he was not far from it. He summoned the god-destroying giant once again to protect himself. The eyeball monster violently charged towards Inmo. However, the powerful impact only pushed Inmo back a few li away. The injuries he suffered were negligible. Even though I haven't returned to my peak state, it's barely enough for me to use that technique. Inmo's eyes were filled with killing intent. In order to break the defense of the eyeball monster's god-destroying shield, perhaps only that kind of attack could work. Immortal Gate, help me! Inmo shouted loudly. Immediately, the ancient stone gate that led to the heavenly desolate ancient realm in the Nine Heavens Imperial Court began to shake violently as if it was resonating with Inmo's technique. Inmo changed his hand seal again. The immortal gate immediately disappeared from the Imperial Court and appeared behind Inmo. It stood quietly in the sky, emitting a mighty aura force. I've been sealed here for countless years. I have to be suppressed by the immortal gate at all times. Even though I've suffered a lot, I've managed to form a connection with this gate by chance. It's enough for me to borrow a trace of its power. Can you withstand the immortal sovereign's finger? As soon as Inmo's voice fell, a large amount of purple light rushed out from the immortal gate. A wave of aura force that seemed to come from the ancient times suddenly descended. Heaven and earth began to tremble. The expression of the eyeball monster changed drastically for the first time. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.